I'd like to welcome everybody to the October 7th Metropolitan Area Planning Commission meeting. And could we have the announcement?
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the District Court.
Thank you. First item is the approval of the prior MAPC meeting minutes of September 23rd. Any corrections, or could I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Got a motion approved by Mr. McKay, second by Mr. Green. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? That passes 10-0. We're going to go through.
We have two abstentions.
Oh,
I don't know.
Nixon, Miles.
Nixon Miles are,
okay, so 8-0-2.
I don't think Miles is here.
That's correct. Miles is not here, so it'd be one abstention. for the record.
9-0-1. We're going to go through the agenda and see how many items we can take on consent. The first one is subdivision item 2.1. It's subdivision 2021-00034, final plat of Winter Estate Edition. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Seeing none, anybody in the chamber here want to hear this case? Anybody virtual want to hear this case? We'll take that on consent.
I'd move for approval.
Second.
Is that Joe? Was that you?
Yes.
And who's second? Ms. Fox. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That carries 10-0.
Mr. Chairman, with Joe Johnson joining, it'll now be 11. It was 11-0.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I'll catch up. Item 2021-00030, that was deferred indefinitely. Vacation items. Item 3.1, which vacation 2021-00039. Is there anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Anybody in the chamber want to hear it? Anybody virtual? Seeing none, we'll take that on consent, and that's the only vacation case we got. So
Move we approve.
Second.
got a motion to approve by Mr. Green, second by Mr. Warren. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody,
Aye.
anybody opposed? 11-0. Now the public hearing, the first one is 2021-00040 accessory apartment. Does anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Anybody in the chamber want to hear this case? Anybody virtual? Take that on consent. 4.2, conditional 2021-00041, another accessory apartment. Anybody on the commission want to hear this item?
Just have a staff question.
Anybody in the chamber want to hear that case? What about virtual? Mr. Green, if you could ask your question.
Yeah, Kathy, I noticed on the site drawing on page 7, it appears as though this property is going to have access onto Pawnee.
Not at this time. They could in the future.
I guess my question, I know how restrictive the county can be on access control. Will they have to go through
Yes, they
the
will
proper
have to.
channels
Yes.
to get that access on
Yes.
Pawnee? Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, we'll take that on consent.
Yeah.
Item 4.3, CUP 2021-00046, in a zoning case 2021-00040. I believe staff needs to add some comments that weren't on that report.
Yes, sir, we have some updates on that report.
It's not updates to the staff report that you have. We just have conditions of approval, or really more recommended CUP language that we want to make sure. And it was sent to the applicant ahead of time, so it's not new today. Just to ensure that the applicant is in, I can't think of the word, I apologize. If they agree with staff's recommendation for the CUP language.
Any questions of staff? I will say this item was approved by DAB 6-1.
Yes, it was approved by DAB. So I saw Levi Bond online. I don't know if you want to see if he wants to hear this case, since our recommendation differs from what they proposed in the application, or if you want to move forward, how you would like to proceed.
Anybody on commission want to hear this case?
Chairman, if we got some change conditions there that we need to, maybe it would be an abbreviated presentation, but I would like to be sure that those changes would be made known and that
Well, I would say if you want to ask the agent for the applicant if they read and understand what the CUP, recommended CUP language is, and if they have any issues with them.
Without doing
Good
it
afternoon, Commission. Can you hear me real quick?
Mr. Bond?
Yeah, I just want to chime in and say that we're in agreement with staff comment. All Philip's saying is that he just wanted you guys to make sure you heard it from me that we're okay with it, and we are. There's no changes from the staff report as you guys saw it.
So they're in agreement with the recommended CUP language.
Was it anybody on the commission want to hear it?
I have a
unrelated sort of question. I'm having trouble hearing. I don't know if it's the sound system or what, but things seems fuzzier today than usual. Is there anything that can be done to fix that?
I don't know if,
Thank you for the note. We'll increase the volume and see if that helps with it.
Thank you.
Anybody in the chamber want to hear this item? Anybody virtual? Seeing none, we'll take that on consent. The next one, 4.5, zoning case 2021-00042.
17.
4 point, oh wait, 4 point. Yeah, sorry. 2021, trying to hurry to get to item 4.6. PUD 2021-00017. Anybody on the commission want to hear this item? Staff's got some additional information on this one too, right?
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Matt Williams. I just wanted to point out that some of the conditions for approval have been updated on this, and you should have those staff reports emailed to you and at your podium. Speaking with the agent for the applicant, it sounds like he's in agreement with those. They're just standard language that we usually include on these PUDs.
Harris is here.
We're okay.
Did talk to him. Anybody on the commission want to hear this item? Anybody in the chamber want to hear this item? How about virtual? Seeing none, we'll take that on consent. Now we're going to go to 4.5. Zoning
Excuse me,
case
but
20.
that one has two options, does it not? Or, I'm sorry, we're moving too quickly. There's staff comments including the staff's recommended PUD language, and then there's not concluding the
That's on the
applicant's
last
PUD
case.
language. Do we not have to specify which one we're approving on consent?
The recommended action is to approve the recommended PUD language, which the agent has agreed to.
Okay, so the staff's
Correct.
PUD language. Okay,
Correct.
thank you. That's what I needed clarified.
Okay. Zoning case 2021-00042. Anybody on the commission?
Excuse me. Is there going to be an opportunity for public comment?
Recommended PUD language, which the agent has agreed to.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, what I'll point out is that on the PowerPoint slide that you can see it lists 4.5 as PUD 2021-18. In fact, on the printed agenda, that is actually item 4.6. We moved that case to the end. PowerPoint, unfortunately, was not up to date with that. So in order to help clarify and relieve any confusion, I know the intent is to take the last case as non-consent. Just on this PowerPoint, it's got the wrong number. So hopefully that helps everyone out.
I see that now. But we're on 00042 now, correct? Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Anybody in the commission chamber want to hear this case? How about virtual? Take that on consent.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve items 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, and 4.5.
This is Joe. I'll second that.
Approve of public hearing items 4.1 through 4.5. Motion by Mr. Green, second by Mr. Joe Johnson. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? We will hear item 4.6, which is PUD 2021-00018. But before that, we will leave the Planning Commission meeting temporarily and go to the BZA. And the first item on it is approval of minutes of September 23rd.
Chairman, I would move to approve, showing that absent was Mr. Nix and Ms. Miles.
I got a motion to approve.
Second?
Approval by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Green. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The next one has to do with BZA 2021-00049, and we just got to state that that's going to be deferred till November 4th meeting. We don't have to take no action on that, do we? All right. Okay, we're going to adjourn BZA and go back to the Planning Commission meeting and have that case. I think Mr. Warren wants to make a comment.
And Mr. Chairman, this is one that looks like we're going to have a fair amount of comment. So I would move that we let people know that we would not be allowing any extensions onto their 3 minutes without a specific motion from somebody from the commission and a second and a vote.
Second.
So that all comments will be limited to 3 minutes from the public.
Second.
Did we vote on that? Got a motion to limit, not go any more than 3 minutes unless there's a motion made from one of the commission members and second by a commission member and voted on. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay.
Good afternoon, Planning Commissioners. Philip Zevenbergen with Planning Staff. PUD 2118 is a zone change from TF3, two-family residential, limited commercial, and general office to PUD, planned unit development, to develop the Happiness Plaza PUD number 92. It is located 1 block south of East Douglas with the specific addresses of 123 and 125 South Clifton, in addition to 3344 East Oakland. The applicant intends to, or is proposing to develop a parking lot with a conceptual design as you see on the screen in front of you. It's for ancillary parking for associated businesses, which are along Douglas, at the addresses of 3429 East Douglas, which is, I believe, the Frost Bakery, the 3543 East Douglas, which is called the Beauty Bar, I believe, and 3555 East Douglas, which currently houses the Belmont, with additional empty retail space that I believe the intention is they're looking to fill. They have several concepts that I'll just leave for the applicant to explain on their own. In addition to ancillary parking, the applicant is asking for farmers market to be a permitted use on the property. During conversation with them, they don't necessarily have a frequency as to when this would happen, but they would like to use the opportunity to have the surface parking to house community events from time to time as well. In terms of the developable language or the development standards within the PUD, it is written to have a base zoning of TF3 zoning in addition to the ancillary parking of the farmers market. This means that if the parking lot is ever looking to be redeveloped, if it is approved and the parking lot is looking to be redeveloped, the only uses that would be permitted by right are those under TF3 zoning, which is the majority of the zoning on the site as it is right now. So effectively, not really changing the zoning, they're just allowing the 2 additional uses on the site versus what is permitted at this time. There are currently houses constructed on the 3 lots. I believe one is a duplex and the other are 2 single-family homes. The development standards of the PUD also point out two things. One for the parking lot, that it would have to adhere to the supplementary use regulations of the Unified Zoning Code with one exception, and that would be allow parking within the front and the side street setbacks, which would not normally be allowed in TF3 zoning. Additionally, the PUD language would require the farmers market to adhere to the supplementary use regulations in the Unified Zoning Code for farmers markets in the city, with the exception that they can get a license for it, even though the property is not zoned for commercial uses as a minimum of those found in limited commercial. So that condition states that in order to get a license for a farmer's market, you would need limited commercial zoning at a minimum. This would have a base zone of TF3. It's in a special district, so they're looking for an exception to that. That's the general basis of the actual PUD document. Everything from here on forward is more staff analysis based on the parking that they're looking for. The applicant owns those 3 addresses that I mentioned before on Douglas. In 2019, they were approved for an administrative adjustment to reduce the parking from 82 spaces down to 64 spaces. It's my understanding this administrative adjustment was sought when the Belmont was going to be proposed. The original use in that location was a retail store, and so when they were changing it to a restaurant use, the parking requirement was going to increase, and they did not have the additional parking to meet the parking requirement with a restaurant use in that space. The administrative adjustment included the entire campus as a holistic parking solution. You can see on page 3 of your staff report, there's a table that shows that the address of 3555 East Douglas would have a parking deficit of 19 spaces for the entire total of those that are required, but that would be made up for with the 19 additional surplus spaces at the other 2 addresses combined. Those basically have a contiguous lot type setup where there's no physical barrier between them, but there's a surplus there. So totally, with all 3 properties together, they could achieve 64 parking spaces, even though those that technically are needing to be used for the restaurant or other retail spaces at 3555 might have to be over on additional property to the west that is owned by the applicant. Staff asked the applicant to conduct a parking study. You have the tabulated data in your staff report. I'll go over the results just very briefly. One of the attachments as well in your staff report is tabulated data of the percent utilization of 3 different categories that we lumped the parking lot into, and that was off-street parking that is not the applicant's, off-street parking that is the applicant, either what they own or what they lease. They lease parking from the Church of Scientology, which is across Clifton to the east. Or at least their parking spaces, I should say. And then the 3rd category was on-street parking for this study area. The study area is on page 13. I think we have that as a slide if you want to move forward in the presentation. Keep going. One more. Maybe we don't, I apologize, but it's on page 13 of your staff report for you to use. Overall, the parking study was conducted for about 6 consecutive days, or 6 days within one 7-day period of time. There are approximately 230 off-street parking spaces in the area, so that's parking lot on the street, or parking on the street. There are approximately 230 off-street parking spaces. There are approximately 195 on-street parking spaces, but only 168 of those are available Monday through Saturday. The other 14% are available on Sunday, because technically you can park on the south side of Douglas along the street on Sundays only. I've never seen anybody park there, but it's available. The results of the parking study show that on weekdays, which is Monday through Thursday, we categorize Friday, especially for restaurant use, as typically more of a weekend utilization. On Monday through Thursday at 6 p.m., saw the highest utilization of the off-street parking. And this is for the parking that the applicant owns or leases. At 6 p.m., there was 72% utilization of the off-street parking that the applicant owns or leases, which allows for 38% availability. On weekends, which was considered Friday through Sunday, 12 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday saw the highest utilization of off-street parking that the applicant owns, and that did not exceed 67%. And 6 p.m. saw the highest utilization on a Friday night, and that did not exceed 76%. So all of that to say, at any given time during the parking analysis, what the applicant owns or leases was never 100% utilized. When we look at on-street parking, the study was conducted from, if you go to the zoning map, this will help me identify where the study area was. The study area was, for on-street parking, was Oakland on both sides from Rutan over to Circle, so north and south sides of the street. The south side of Douglas, again, that was only available on Sundays, and we made note of that. And then both sides of Clifton from Douglas to English, with the understanding that there are certain parking restrictions in areas that prohibit parking at certain times and things like that. So on-street parking at 6 p.m. on weeknights, only 33% of the on-street parking at 6 p.m. during weeknights was utilized in the study area. And during the weeknight one, we did not count the Douglas parking because it's not available on a weeknight. At 6 p.m. or at 12 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday, on-street parking did not exceed 32%. At 6 p.m. on a Friday, it did not exceed 37%. So I'll have to say, for on-street parking, more than 2/3 of the on-street parking was shown to be available at that time. Do you have a question, Mr. Green?
Yeah. On your off-street parking, you said it was 72% was utilized and 38% was unutilized?
Was available.
It was available, that's 110%?
Oh, that should say 28% then.
Okay.
It's the 72%, I apologize.
And then likewise on the 76 and
Yes.
34%?
Or it says 67 and it should say 33%. I apologize for that. Yeah. Should be 24% was. The utilization number is correct. I apologize for the mistake in the staff report.
Can I ask a question as well? I don't understand. I can't imagine how they would do it, but was the fact that we're in a pandemic factored into this study in any way?
The purpose of the study was to give a snapshot just to have quantifiable data, because oftentimes when you talk about is there the availability of parking, it's nice to have some numbers. We know it's not the end-all study. We know there's so many different factors that could go into change. When we're at DAB on Monday night, it was brought up, is the restaurant really at its 100% capacity? There's many different factors that could change and alter.
Okay.
This was literally 1 week in September in 2021 when there's a whole number of different factors. Other things to think about is when the winter comes in, it's not necessarily as nice outside, or more people wanting to walk a block away, that type of thing. So it wasn't necessarily an exhaustive,
All right,
take into account all the factors, just a snapshot to have some idea versus just saying, when you hear comments of saying, there's no on-street parking, there's no off-street parking, like there's no numbers, there's now numbers to associate,
Okay.
at least for a snapshot.
I'm glad for the clarification.
Yep.
Thank you.
So that wraps up kind of the discussion of the parking study. It is noted, as I said before, that they leased the parking spaces from the Church of Scientology across the street on Clifton. The applicant did inform us before they even submitted the application that they have asked other businesses in the area for opportunities for shared parking, and those businesses have declined. I haven't heard word today, and it was information that was gathered after the DAB even, that the Neighborhood Association president has been working with local businesses in the area along Douglas and has received a level of confirmation from St. John's Episcopal Church on Douglas, which is a block to the east, that they would be willing to work with the applicant. It's not necessarily a deal that says, yes, we're going to do shared parking with them, but that is new information that was not even available for DAB. So the applicant has reached out to businesses in the past and have been declined for shared parking opportunities. It seems that there might be some more opportunity in the future for shared parking. We as this city can't force people to share parking. If somebody owns their lot and they don't want to share it, that's their prerogative. The zoning and character around there, you can see on the zoning map in front of you, the properties along Douglas are commercial. The property to the east is Church of Scientology is general office. Properties to the south are a mix of single family and duplex residential, and the properties to the west of the property along Oakland are 2-family for duplex development. South Clifton is a paved 2-way local street with sidewalks on both sides. East Oakland is a brick paved local street with sidewalks on both sides. Wichita Transit has regular bus service during the weekdays on East Douglas. They also have the Q line service during the evenings, Monday through Friday, till or Monday through Thursday to 11, Friday till midnight, and then operates most of the day on Saturday as well with 15-minute intervals. Conformance to the comprehensive plan, the Wichita Comprehensive Plan, the Community Advancements Plan, identifies this site as appropriate for residential development. It's also within an established central area, which looks to maximize the infrastructure of the city within the established core. Based on these, it is developing it as a parking lot does not maximize the public investment for the infrastructure that is available. The Places for People Plan identifies it as an area of stability, which states that improvements in this area should be geared toward continuing the area's momentum and strengthening the established context. The established context in the area is a mixture of multifamily, single-family, and two-family residential dwellings. The goal of the Places People Plan is to promote walkable development oriented toward people, but balancing it also with automobiles. The parking standards on this site of the plan state that parking lots can disrupt walkable development patterns based on their size, location, and design. It is important for places to reduce off-street parking requirements, particularly when transit is present, and maximize utilization of on-street parking and encourage opportunities for shared or remote parking or public parking. The subject site has already been approved for a parking reduction. There's transit along Douglas, as we talked about. The Places for People Plan emphasizes supporting uses that maximize the opportunity for public investment and contributing to the tax base. And if you were to remove the improvements from these sites, you're going to have an effect and a negative effect on the property tax base, which would have an effect on the city of Wichita, Sedgwick County, as well as the Unified School District. There's a breakdown of what that would look like in your staff report. But that's something that comes out of the Places for People Plan as well. Overall, staff is recommending denial of this case. The zoning and character of the neighborhood, as we talked about, is an established context of single-family, two-family, and multifamily zoning with the commercial properties fronting Douglas. Commercial properties front Douglas. The properties to the west and the south are the established context. The suitability for which the subject property has been restricted, it is zoned, the majority of it is zoned TF3 with existing houses on the property. They can continue to be utilized. A parking lot is not the highest and best use of this property in terms of liveliness, vibrancy, and quality of life. And from an economic standpoint regarding the tax base, a parking lot does not support a robust or financially stronger community. Rezoning the property to PUD to permit ancillary parking and a farmer's market could continue to erode the residential character of the area. Go to the aerial. There are other parking lots that do come to Clifton. Apparently we can't see them, but at Clifton and Rutan, the pediatric dentist office has a parking lot that comes to Rutan. That was done in 1959. The Church of Scientology has one. Andy's Custard, theirs doesn't come all the way to Oakland, but it was determined that they shouldn't have a driveway off onto Oakland. And so there's already an existing pattern of degrading the neighborhood on this block. And so further degradation in the neighborhood could happen. Talked about the relative gain to public health, safety, and welfare to the loss in value and hardship imposed on the applicant. If a parking lot is developed on the site, the public welfare will suffer loss in tax revenue and requiring a significant amount of sales tax from the associated businesses to produce sales tax revenue comparable to the existing property taxes. The caveat to that is the Wichita School District does not receive any contribution from sales tax. The associated restaurant and retail site has an existing parking with additional on-street parking available. The parking study demonstrated that peak usage did not bring to capacity the available parking off-street or even on-street. We talked about the conformance to the comprehensive plan, and it is staff's opinion that there would be no anticipated negative impacts on community facilities. We just put a caveat at the end of these that if it is in the opinion of this board that this is an appropriate use and you look to move for approval, that you adopt alternate findings to support your approval. But we also recommend these two conditions of approval, which is our standard language regarding the recording of the certificate with the Register of Deeds and providing planning with copies of the recommended language that is also included in your staff report. I can take you through the rest of the slides here. Keep going. This is looking at the two houses that front Clifton, looking to the northwest. Next picture. This is looking on Oakland. You can see that the property to the left is the third property involved, and then the side view of the corner property along Clifton. Next picture. This is looking south or northwest along Oakland, down the street. Next picture. This is looking southwest along Oakland, across the street. Next picture. This is looking southwest at the corner property at Clifton and Oakland. This house would be on the side of the parking lot. Next picture. This is looking to the southeast. This is a condominium complex nearby. Next picture. This is the Church of Scientology parking lot that they lease. Next picture. A closer up view of that parking. Next picture. This is looking towards the site. This is the white building in front are the retail spaces. I believe they're looking to fill of the Happiness Plaza and how they relate to the houses that are behind them. Next picture. This is Happiness Plaza looking towards the Belmont part of it. Next picture. This is looking at the Belmont property with the additional lease area from Douglas. You can see with the light pole, there's a pedestrian light that allows pedestrians across Douglas. Next picture. It's looking to the southwest along Douglas at the other properties that the applicant owns. There are houses that were converted to businesses, but that's the Happiness Plaza campus that the administrative adjustment for parking applied to. And I think that would be it. I can stand for any questions.
Any questions of staff? Any questions?
Yeah, yes, I do. I have one. What was the result of the DAB board meeting?
That's a good question. Thank you, Mr. Florence. The DAB voted to support staff's recommendation with a motion to deny that passed 6-4.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Applicant or read.
I guess I've got one. Philip, I just have a question on the, maybe a couple, I don't know. We already have parking lots that extend down to Oakland, like you said, on the east side of Clifton, and then also on the east side of Rattan. So it's not unusual to have a parking lot on Oakland that...
No, it is definitely not the first. You are correct. There are several examples of parking lots.
And it appears that the parking lot, at least as it's been shown to us in not only our staff report, but in the handout that we got today, this is probably going to be the best looking parking lot that is fronting Oakland.
It is definitely has more attention to detail.
Yeah.
And the applicant has stated that they are actually reducing the number of parking they could actually fit in there to increase the design standard of the parking lot.
And I like the little walk path and the seating area that they've gone into to.
And I believe that they intend in their limited amount of time, try to squeeze it in. They have a pretty robust presentation about their intentions.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I guess, and I would assume that there has probably been, this parking lot, to me, I get the impression that it might be a response to possible neighborhood complaints of people parking in the street, you know, in front of properties, maybe not necessarily keeping driveways available for owners to have access. And I don't know, I kind of see this as a positive way for the owners to make the parking not as problematic in the neighborhood.
During public comment at DAB, which was fairly robust, there's about approximately 50 to 60 individuals at the DAB meeting Monday night. Very robust conversation, very good deliberation by both the public comment as well as the board that evening. There were, I believe the applicant stated that the concept for the parking lot instigated from one of the house property owners that they have purchased. calling the Belmont to say, you should just, something to the effect of, you should just buy my house and make a parking lot, something to that effect. They can clarify the exact details, but something to that effect where some of the public comments of those in favor of this parking lot is for that very reason. They would like to see less street parking. There was comments regarding if you go further south along Clifton, you get to College Hill Park. Apparently when the pool structure was going to be in, the neighborhood banded together to avoid a surface parking lot in the park and said, so there's a fair amount of on-street parking near the park. And so you'll hear from those who live in the neighborhood who are going to articulate it better than I have, but it's definitely a point of support from neighbors in College Hill. There are those who are in support of it because of the on-street parking and having people parking in front of their driveway or parking so close that they just can't get in, or other things related to that.
Mr. Warren?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Philip, on the drawing of page 12 of partial one, lays out the way the parking stalls would go in. It's interesting, the ones that lie to the, I think it would be the west, if I'm looking at this correctly.
North is up.
North is up, so the arched stalls to the west get a little bit narrow at the back. Do you know how wide those would be and how close?
I don't. I can defer
like
to the
residential lots. You can, when you get into cul-de-sacs, you get really small front yards and big backyards. Is that going to be an issue?
I would say as long as they're built to, at least the front of the stalls built to the minimum standard that parking stalls should be built to, that it shouldn't. I don't know what their dimensions are, but I'm sure in the design process they have spent some time in design, that they probably know what those dimensions are and can inform you as to what those dimensions
Might be a
are.
question I'll
Can
ask
I
for
respond to that from someone who's designed parking lots? If you look at the lots to the east and their average width, the lots to the west, it's not that they're narrow at the back, it's that they're wide at the front. That's how you have to design on an inside curve. I think they're totally workable, especially given the backup zone behind them.
Thank you.
Any other questions from staff? Yes, Mr.
Looking at this parking analysis, the space that's available, all except one location, is owned by the applicant, I assume, right?
Yes, I
And
see you
where
looking at the
is-
table on page 3.
So 3705 East Douglas, is
That's the
that
Church
to
of
the east or the
Scientology.
west of
That's
Happy?
east. That's the Church of Scientology.
East of the Church of Scientology?
No, it is the Church of Scientology.
It is. So and the Church of Scientology has an agreement that people can park on their property on the weekends?
I don't know what the exact agreement is. It could be during business hours. I can defer to them on what their exact, I do know that the owners of the Belmont have stated that they typically have their employees park over there. So in the image on your, go back one to the aerial. 3705 on the aerial is directly across the street. You can see the edge of the parking lot on the picture.
Right.
I don't know the exact terms of their agreement. My understanding is that they are typically using it now for their employees, to have their employees not be on the street or in their prime parking spaces for patrons. I don't know as to the extent of when in the Belmont can and cannot use the parking lot.
The other comment I would make is that from the inception of this building, its use was different than what it is now, the Happiness Plaza structure. There's a restaurant there that wasn't there before, and this restaurant requires more parking space than when that structure was built. Now, I don't know what the history of any zoning changes or what may have been to allow for that restaurant, but there's not adequate parking on the property immediately there that they own.
That was addressed by the administrative adjustment. That document is included in your staff report. When they applied for the administrative adjustment, they had the restaurant as a identified use and said, we're going to need 51 spaces for a parking, for just 3555 East Douglas. They were going to need 51 spaces for the restaurant and 22.1 spaces for the retail, in addition to the required off-street parking for their other buildings to the west of there. and they came up with a overall off-street parking requirement of 82, and they only had 64 spaces, and they were approved for 64 spaces with the restaurant as an identified use.
Mr. Nix?
Philip, I'm just curious, the Church of Scientology, was it a private residence at one point in time? I assume it was. Would that be right? Do you have any idea?
I don't know the history. I
And if it
apologize.
was, were there homes to the south of that, or did they have a big garden and it just extended all the way back to?
I
how-
apologize, I don't know the
how did we
history
end
of
up with
the
a
property
parking
of
lot?
the Church of Scientology.
How did we end up with a parking lot that was that deep? I'm just curious.
I don't know the history of that property, I apologize.
Mr. Green?
The report says that the 3 houses that are proposed to be raised are in poor shape. My observance from the street was, and I'm not sure poor shape was the words, but the words were pretty vague. I visited the homes. There's no posted code violations from the street. They look to be great structures, especially relative to other homes from that era in our community. So is there any, can you give a more technical evaluation of the status of the homes that are proposed to be raised?
I'm not recalling where I described the condition of the homes. I
should've
do know
marked
that,
it.
if you could find that, I do know there has been public comment in written form describing their opinion of the state of the homes. I do know that they're unoccupied. There was a statement about their being vacant. But in terms of their condition, I don't.
Vacant at the time they were purchased, or vacant after, or vacated once
They
sold?
vacated, my understanding of the agreement that came with the property owners is that they purchased the home and were actually very accommodating to allow the folks time to move after. So they did purchase them from owner occupied or owned anyway, whether one was rented, I don't know. But either way, they were owned and inhabited to some degree. They purchased them, but now they are vacant.
Mr. Green?
Yeah, and I guess the other thing that I had that you were referencing to the denial, the tax revenue piece of this, we're going to be losing tax revenue on this. I'm trying to recall the last time when we went into loss of revenues for parking lots. And I think specifically in Delano, across the street from Riverfront Stadium, I think we raised several properties over there, and I don't recall any comment whatsoever of loss of tax revenue.
No, Mr. Green, this is Scott Wadle from the Planning Department, and this is the first case that I've had that has come to the Planning Department since I've been to the director, and the first instance where we've had structures that would be raised in order to put up a parking lot. So this is the first analysis that we've done like this.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions of staff? Seeing none, applicant or agent. You have 10 minutes. Give us your name and address.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. Planning Commissioners, Russ Avey, agent for the applicant with Boffman Company, 315 Ellis. I will try to be as brief and to the point with my opening statements in order to afford the applicants time. They do a much better job at my job than I'll be doing on this particular case. But as we talked about on Monday night, there in my reading of the Planning Commission or the Planning Department's report, there were 3 primary issues that led to their recommendation for denial. One was the need, one was lack of conformance to plans and policies, and the third was this taxation analysis. With regard to the first item, the need for parking, again, this group of developers and applicants and business owners have done a top-shelf job with reaching out not only to the College Hill Neighborhood Association while attending their August association meeting, but we also arranged and had a great meeting with planning staff where they asked us to do this parking analysis, and so we acquiesced as quickly as we could with time of the essence. And so I think Commissioner Foster gave one of the points, and that is Clearly, business, the driving to businesses and the gathering of people, especially at restaurants, has been hurt over the last nearly 2 years. Mid-September, as the applicants will say, is an off-peak time for restaurant usage. If you look at it from at least my standpoint, 6 o'clock, the peak usage, which would be common sense, is still fairly early for a dinner time service at a restaurant. So I think I agree with the data in equals data out as far as quality, and I don't think this is necessarily a quality analysis, but we certainly wanted to work with staff on good faith. This is also along the Douglas corridor, especially not just the Belmont, but there was an argument in the staff report that we should prevent the Happiness Plaza from expanding surface parking lot in order to force them into using other modes of transportation, specifically transit. And I don't think that there is an area quite like Douglas corridor which maximizes, if you can use that word in Wichita, maximizes the use of public transportation. Many people use the Q line. I live in the area. I use the Q line to go to and from places. But nonetheless, we're not talking about neighborhood establishments. We're talking about the Belmont, which has a regional type draw. So it's fantastic if we would have mass transit available for all four corners of our community, but we don't. We have it along the Douglas Street corridor, and I think it's working fantastically well, not only as a patron, but as a casual observer in these types of land use decisions. Lack of conformance to plans and policies. Again, as I mentioned on Monday night, this is one of those situations where I think the story is half told. Staff talks about the impact of this particular small, less than 1 acre, 26 stall parking lot with its impact on walkability without discussing how that happens. I personally, as somebody, you may not be able to tell it from my body type, but I do like to walk quite a bit. We are still retaining the sidewalks that are there currently. There's nothing today that is going to be more walkable than if this request is granted and this transitions into a parking lot. Staff talks about established context being residential. I think clearly when you look at that zoning map, and anybody that's familiar with the area understands, the staff report doesn't account that our block is primarily office, medical, institutional, and retail. The established context of this area is most certainly mixed at worst, commercial at best. So we take a little bit of a pushback on the characterization of the neighborhood and how this would be out of character with the neighborhood. The comprehensive plan itself specifically states a support for the removal of residential structures to support neighborhood serving businesses as long as there are appropriate site design features. And I don't think anybody that can look at the graphics that our architect, Mr. Cathcart, put together would say anything less than maximizing site design and the limitation going from what could have been 45 to 46 stalls down to 26 stalls in order to have those pedestrian amenities as part of the design. The People and Places Plan identifies this area as an area of stability, as staff mentioned. That plan also indicates this area is having a low to moderate pedestrian demand, and that improvements should be geared towards strengthening the established context. There again, I think at worst, this is neutral. At best, it does support and enhance those plans. Even the Douglas Corridor Plan that we were loosely affiliated with supports the desire to make sure one of their overarching goals is to provide stability and enhancement to existing businesses along the Douglas Street corridor. And I think if you read through the finer details of all these plans, you will find indications where this particular proposal certainly meets those planning goals. Staff report does not cite other goals of the plan, specifically that the fact that the size of the lot and the design of the lot minimizes those impacts that the plan seeks to eliminate. Again, these plans are for acres of parking, not tens of thousands square feet. And I think it's already been mentioned, and I will certainly let the applicants speak, the fact that they have and continue to work with parking solutions in the area. I will let the applicants talk a little bit more about the taxation, the taxation issue. And the only other thing would be to recap the District Advisory Board meeting. Again, great, fantastic meeting, had mixed opinions on pros and cons. The concern over removing homes along Oakland to establish a pattern has already been well established. I think to Orm Street further east, when the Kellogg frontage development started moving south, planning staff worked with the developers back in the mid-90s to develop a plan by where that Orm Street was the dividing line. Nothing non-residential south of Orm, and you better come in with a good plan for what you want to see happen to the north of Orm, between Orm and Kellogg. I think the same rationale fits here. The one salient point that I think was brought up by the opposition, and I'll end on this for now, was the fact that we were proposing a farmer's market, and at the time the farmer's market is operating, it'll displace all these parking stalls that we're trying to utilize to get people off the street. And we are standing here today willing to take and remove farmer's market from an allowable use. This is simply ancillary parking to support one of Wichita's finest restaurants and a very vibrant and beneficial neighborhood commercial center. With that, I'll stand for any questions that you may have. Otherwise, I'll cede the rest of my time to Tori and Ryan.
Any questions, Mr. Avey?
One quick comment, if I may. I find the farmer's market one of the attractive parts of this, and I will explain why in more detail later, but just so you know.
We certainly wanted that as a community amenity, but, you know, it's not for us, it was for the community and for other vendors, so.
They typically start at 7 in the morning on a Saturday and are often done by 10 or 11, so I don't know that they would impact the parking situation that much.
That's the way we felt. But that's for your consideration.
Anybody, any other?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Joe.
This is Joe. Yeah, is there any reason why there has to be an exit to the south? Couldn't it all be to the east?
The exit onto Oakland Street, sir?
Yes.
It provided a little bit more functionality for that particular design. I think the design was predicated on trying to save as many of the existing mature trees. If you notice on the plan, there are a number of mature trees within this parking area, and I think the design was just to avoid eliminating those center two trees. If we were to do kind of a U shape out to Clifton Street, I think you would have to raise more of the property than what we did with this design. That would be my answer. I would let the applicants explain the design a little bit more, since they were involved much more in the creation of that design.
Any other questions, Mr. Avey? Thank you. Now you got a little over 2 minutes.
Okay. My name is Tori DeMars, 9413 East Shannon Way Court.
I'm Ryan Francisco, 13 Via Roma, here in Wichita.
So I'll try to make this as quick as we can with the time allowed, but the idea that we're currently renting a parking lot from the Church of Scientology is true. According to staff, it's not necessary per our variance that we received before, but we deemed it necessary to try to help get more cars off the street. And we took that on our own volition, trying to help some of the stress in the neighborhood. And then knowing that there's still additional stress, though you'll hear from people that are for it and against it with parking on street. This is a solution that we came up with to help solve that as well. There's a packet and there's a slideshow. Sorry, I don't know if I have a clicker or you do, but there's one where it shows everything in red that is on here. Also, already goes for a whole block that's there. We're the one in blue, so we're just right in the center of it. So I feel like the precedent has already been set on the north, on the south side, and the east and west of us, both. At At the same time, we tried to take the designs of those that are already there and improve them greatly to try to fit into the neighborhood as best possible. We love being in College Hill, and we want to try to continue to add to it, and thus the market that we're discussing as well that would need that additional parking was not part of the reduction, although I believe at the DAB meeting, it was vocalized that no additional parking was needed for the market to open, but actually there is, which was corrected today by staff on there. So I feel like there's a little bit of wrong information that went out there initially at DAB there. With the design that we're trying to do with the parking lot, we want to keep the mature trees, and we're working with a gentleman currently on the possibility of relocating one of the smaller houses as well. Potentially one of the larger ones, although that one is going to be a lot more cumbersome to try to do. And then there is a house on the corner that structurally, we had a structural engineer come out and look at it. They said that you wouldn't be able to relocate that house just because of the state of the foundation, the roof, the siding, everything else that goes along with it, the porch, everything else. So they said that that one would not be able to be relocated. So we are looking at those possibilities as well, even though we're here for the parking lot, not necessarily for the houses that are on there.
Your time's up. Do you?
Got it. Okay,
I'd like to move to allow another, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever.
Second.
What is it, 2 minutes?
3 minutes.
Got a motion to,
Am I allowed to do 3? Can I just do 2?
it's your call.
3. I would like to allow 3 more minutes.
How about the second?
I'll second it, or Mr. Dool.
Got a motion to additional 3 minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the leniency there. So with Larchers, the idea that we wanted to do the market there, part of the feasibility of making that work, if anyone here was to go to a market, I'm assuming that you'd want to be able to park as close to that market as possible as you're carrying out groceries and doing different things there as well. So again, we thought this would help feed that. There's a lot of history with Larchers. I don't know if anyone here knows that. Ryan's in-laws are the Larchers, so we've got some of the original signage. We've got the original meat slicer, different things that we're going to put in there as well. But it means a lot to him and his family as well. But that's where this is all kind of started to come about over the last year. A couple quick things that we created 48 new jobs already at the Belmont currently that didn't exist before we opened. Larchers would have another 25, so we'd have about 73 new jobs that would just be at Happiness Plaza. The taxes that are on there, do you want to go over that real quick, Ryan?
Yeah, that was one of the items in staff's report that Mr. Green, you brought up, as far as the lost tax revenue. We went back here and looked. What they're not accounting for is currently to date, we're paying about $12,000, $13,000 a year more in property taxes based on the improvements that we've already made to Happiness Plaza. You calculate that out based on the additional improvements we're going to do for Larchers. At the end of the day, we're going to be paying about $26,000 or $28,000 a year more in property taxes than when we originally acquired this property. So that in and of itself more than offsets the $5,000 that they're saying they're going to lose in their property tax or in their tax revenue. But then on top of that, the Belmont's paying about $176,000 a year right now in sales tax. We believe with conservative revenue estimates at Larchers, that'll add another $100,000. So we'll be about $290,000 a year in sales tax that was not being generated prior to this. On top of that, we've got about $230,000 in construction sales tax that's on top of it. So I think the tax argument, we're more than making up what would be lost out of the $5,000 that staff brought up. So just wanted to make a point of that.
With that, I guess we could take any questions. I've got a lot more information, but I want to be mindful of your time.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Warren?
Gentlemen, this morning I heard an interesting program on parking. And one of the things that came out of that, there's a number of cities around the nation that are doing away with both minimum and maximum on parking, leaving it to the marketplace. In your mind, is this critical for the success of your operation?
I do. We currently, the parking study that was done, once school started, we saw about a 25 to 30% dip in sales. And so that's not accurate with COVID being there. I don't believe that's accurate. And that's also without a concept even open. So even if there was a 20% or 30% surplus the days that those studies were done, I mean, we still have another 25 employees on top of that anyways, which would take up that space anyways. So yes, I do believe it is.
Any other questions?
What are the hours of operation for the market as compared to the restaurant? Are they going to be operating all at the same time? How does that work out?
So it does have, there will be some sort of an overlap. This would be more of a breakfast, and lunch would be more of the peak volume for it. But it does have a basement to it as well, which would have a bar connected off there. So it would still extend a little bit into the evening hours, but not as long though.
A bar in the basement? Is that
correct?
Part of the market use?
That's correct. It would be attached to the market as well as the same concept there. So we have a coffee and alcohol bar upstairs, and then it would be mimicked downstairs as well too.
Staff question: a bar, nightclub?
It would be an extension of the market and restaurant.
That adds another dimension to zoning, I think.
I'm curious. No, please. I don't know that this information really involved in this
That's off-site.
case, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
So, just to clarify that the topic at hand is not the uses on an adjacent property.
Okay.
So, though that was brought up, if there would have to be, there would have to be approvals and licensing and things to approve a bar. If it is a standalone drinking establishment, it could potentially be considered connected to the restaurant.
Okay.
Those are separate discussions. It's not applicable to the parking discussion today. If it were to be deemed necessary, possible future public involvement would have to be considered. If a conditional use would have to be applied for. The final determination has not come to that.
Okay.
So, but just kind of to wrap things back to, this is not included in the PUD. The PUD is for parking. That property is on a separate parcel, not included in the PUD.
Thank you, Philip. Any other questions?
Clarification, you stated one of the properties structurally couldn't withstand moving, but structurally it's sound as it stands where it's at. Is that accurate?
It would need some, what do you call it? Foundation, some foundation work would be needed.
It's habitable.
I don't know for sure code-wise on electrical and a couple of things that would need to be inspected, but someone had moved out recently, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. McKay? Oh, okay. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to open it up. I want to remind everybody that 3 minutes is a max, and I highly recommend that we don't hear something over and over and over again with the same comments. We'd like to have new comments when there's a speaker speaking.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question. We may have people on both sides. Do we want to alternate this in any way, or do we want to control that, or just let it flow as it happens naturally?
I first thought about the possibility of having everybody speak in favor of it, talk, and then whoever's opposed talk, but I don't know if that works or don't work.
No, I don't think that'll work.
You what?
I think that would make it more difficult to make an even judgment. I like the idea of alternating, at least as long as
Okay.
the alternates last.
Okay. All right, let's start. State your name and address, and we got 3 minutes. Yes.
My name is Carrie Tarkman, and I live in College Hill at 307 North Roosevelt. And this is the first time I've talked at a planning meeting in my entire life, and I'm 63 years old, so I'm a little nervous. But because of us moving here, my husband and I moved here from Northern California. My husband had grown up and lived his whole life in San Francisco and worked in San Francisco all of his career, and I grew up in San Jose. So we are quite aware of parking lots, zoning, commission boards, And we are we are interested in a denial. We moved to College Hill. When we came out here, we didn't look at any other community in Wichita. We came to Wichita for a very important reason, and we only looked at College Hill. And every day my husband walks around this neighborhood and literally he says, we are living in paradise, and we believe it. And we don't want to see part of the neighborhood have the historic houses. Whether somebody's living in them right now or not isn't the point. Somebody bought them, they own them, it's their property in College Hill. Now, I have worked and gone to, I haven't worked, I'm sorry. I have gone to Happiness Plaza. When I came out here, I looked for a hairdresser, and I found one it was in Happiness Plaza. She'd been there a long time. There's other businesses in Happiness Plaza. Their rates recently their lease rates got jacked up. All the salon people had to get out and find another place to put their business. My hairdresser actually did to a small house with another friend on Central near Oliver. Another gal I know that was working at the salon as a nail gal, she's over at the, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Vora, the one on the corner, the big complex there with the restaurant. When I had gone there in the daytime, on the weekdays, on the Saturday, that parking lot was never utilized and filled up. The paperwork says that there is parking that they have available, that the restaurant is not filling up. I also did, because I'm old school, I didn't bring my phone, so I did on my little, with a pen on the paper. It says, right here, it says, associated businesses would need to generate an approximate total to offset the property tax. If you add up 566,000, 324,000, 160,000, that's over $1,050,000, not including the spare dollars there. I don't see how the Belmont is going to bring in $1 million more worth of business to offset these taxes. The people that live here because of the trees, the homes, the beauty of the neighborhood, and whether a house is in their opinion, not in the best condition, it's livable, somebody owns it, they pay the taxes on it, it shouldn't be torn down. We didn't come here from Northern California to see parking lots to start to encroach in the College Hill area. We came here because we love the neighborhood and we want to see the beauty of it, the walkability of it, all stay. The parking lots is not needed. They're not tapping out the parking that's available, and there's been plenty of legislation to downplay how much parking is going to be allowed there, that they've reduced the parking, but they're still not using all the parking they have. And the fact that two other businesses, they came to them, approached them about parking, Victory in the Valley, and the other one, and they declined, and they said, we don't want your parking to be allowed here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name's Brandon Paul Seen. I've also never, is this called testifying? What are we doing here? No. Anyway, so I'm glad I got to jump on it. I'm from Wichita, USA. I live at 7936 East Dublin Court. I'm so pleased that College Hill is improving. I love that College Hill is what it is, and everybody in Wichita, Kansas knows it's a very special place. But it has to continue to improve so we get the rest of the community involved there. People love going down to Happiness Plaza ever since it's been built. They walk there, they drive there, they ride their bikes there, but most people are driving there. When you park on the street, it causes a lot of negative, and I'll just tell you this from the area that I own property in Sleepy Hollow. When you park on the street, it invites people to break into your cars. It invites people to not treat your property with the respect that they should treat it with. When you're in a parking lot that's well lit, by the way, this doesn't look like a parking lot, it looks like a park, what they've proposed. I think it's going to be a beautiful enhancement for the area. All of the people that will, I'm a comedian too, so I love hearing that.
I'd like to show some respect to the speaker, because you
Indeed.
guys have your shot, and I know
So-
you wouldn't enjoy somebody talking in the background, so go ahead, sir.
So whenever people go to an area for the first time and you don't have a place to park, oftentimes you just decide not to go back. And that's not the kind of thing that we want in Wichita, USA. I've always complained about a lack of parking in lots of different cool spots in Wichita, Kansas. So I'm pleased that these people have taken into consideration that this area is going to invite more people to come to park, to feel like they have a safe place for their vehicles to be while they enjoy this really awesome gem in the heart of College Hill in Wichita, Kansas. So thank you for hearing what I have to say, and I appreciate
Any
your
questions of
time.
the speaker? Seeing none, thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Jack Patton, live at 337 South Rutan. Sounds like we're here because of bad decisions on parking earlier, restricting the thing. I'm not affiliated with the company, so that might be something you might want to determine. Riverside and College Hill are neighborhoods that all cities, especially Wichita, should strive to have. When I've lived there, property values continue to go up. Even during the recession we had a few years ago, property values stayed the same. You know, parking lots, not so much. It's been there over 100 years. Well, most restaurants, you know, what is the lifetime on those? 1 to 6 years. And then we got a parking lot. So even in recessions, College Hill does very well. Houses are selling in 12 hours there, long before we had any restaurants here. Recently, a $60,000 house sold for $125,000. They refurbished it to turn it into a $250,000 house, and they put it on the market for $430,000. I'm not so sure we need any more help. You know, be nice, but really we don't ask a whole lot. The walking and the drivability and the pets and the pool are not like any other community in Wichita. So my other concern is that south exit going into Oakland when there's a bar established. I don't know how comfortable I am having folks of various stages of inebriation driving through a residential neighborhood. Maybe that's fine for some folks and maybe that's fine for others, but I'm not too comfortable with it. We have narrow streets, we have bumpy streets, and we're not asking you to smooth them out because the bumpiness slows down the traffic a little bit so the kids don't have to worry about it. I didn't move to College Hill for a parking lot. And because somebody made a bad decision in 1959 to encroach into a residential area, I don't think it really justifies having just keeping that decision going. Let's see. That's basically it. We moved to College Hill because of College Hill, not because of anything else.
Any questions of the speaker?
Okay.
Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Are you okay?
Can I just real quick, I gotta do my thing. Thank you. My name's Garrett Hake. I'm at 114 North Wabash, and I am in 4, the Belmont parking lot. I am part of the contracting group that helped Tori and the guys build the Belmont and refurbish the Happiness Plaza. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Any questions, speaker? Seeing none, thank you. Next speaker.
Okay, now my turn. Hi, I'm Krista Vazeos, and I live at 115 South Rutan. I'm a resident of College Hill, and I live on the top floor of the Hillcrest. My home looks up Douglas, where I have the Belmont and the property behind it in plain view. Personally, I believe the parking lot will benefit our gorgeous community. There are, as you know, many security factors in this neighborhood where safe and clean parking would be beneficial. Safety is first. My daughter used to work at the Belmont, and she had to always be escorted by a manager to her car after closing because it was frankly very scary for her when she had to park so far away on the street. Secondly, I have been aware of the plans of what the parking lot will look like, which will be in complete synchronicity with the beauty of the neighborhood. There is no doubt in my mind that the Belmont holds true to the history of the character that holds beauty of that very important area of Wichita. That is clear when you walk into the restaurant itself and see the iconic photos of the history of that building and of our neighborhood, including my building, the Hillcrest. Lastly, this issue pertains to me directly, as this is what I see every day from my bedroom. I have been very happy to see Happiness Plaza come alive again. There is a charm, there is a movement, there is safety. I also absolutely love the architecture of this neighborhood, and I understand the want to hold as many old buildings and hold on to as much history that this neighborhood has had in the past as well. However, first we need to consider the safety. Second, we need to consider the organization and cleanliness having to do with the upkeep of these old buildings if there is no life. In fact, if there is disrepair, then we need to clean it and we need to put this new life so that we may keep to the term and beauty of this neighborhood. Therefore, I am in agreement that our parking behind the Belmont favors our neighborhood. I'm in favor for creating a beautiful and safe parking that I'm certain the Belmont would do for us, the residents of College Hill. And by the way, I just am embarrassed to say that I got a ticket the other day because there is no parking for us residents. There is a parking garage, but not enough for the residents of the Hillcrest. And I do have affirmation from 10 residents that they are in favor of having this beautiful park-like looking parking lot behind the Belmont that I get to see every morning when I wake up.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you.
And
Next
I
speaker.
thank everybody who are opposed and for it. I'm just happy that everybody cares.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. Members of the Planning Commission, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Charlie Young, and I've lived in College Hill for most of my life. I'm a business owner, former city manager, and former developer. I am here in support of our College Hill neighborhood. I am in support of a community with vibrant businesses, churches, schools, and homes. All of these entities make up the unique character which makes College Hill one of Wichita's unique historical and premier neighborhoods. College Hill is unique due to its historical nature and the fact that we all have all of these groups who work together. Newer neighborhoods in Mays, Goddard, Andover, Hayesville, East Wichita, West Wichita, Eastboro, other new developments do not allow anything but homes to be placed in their developments. Newer neighborhoods have strict homeowner associations that preserve the neighborhood. Newer neighborhoods do not allow homes to be torn down and replaced with blacktop parking lots. I'm here to make it be known that we're here to help and work with our business neighbors. There are solutions to the parking situations facing the Belmont. The neighborhood is more than willing to work together to create a viable parking solution for everyone. Installing a 26-space parking lot will not solve the problem. The proposed grocery store, breakfast, diner, whatever it is today or tomorrow, we still can't tell. They've said nightclub too, will need to be much more than 26 spaces. 26 spaces isn't even going to make a dent in this. This development will only cause more congestion for the neighborhoods and surrounding streets. I work on the pool committee. Everybody wanted a parking lot for the pool. We said no because it cuts into the neighborhood. We deal with it. We have over 200 people at that pool on the hot days. It works. We make it works just fine. We work with the neighborhood. We make it work. We didn't need a parking lot. Currently, there are church parking lots within walking distance of the Belmont. These include Blessed Sacrament, St. James, which has said they'll work with them, East Heights, Plymouth Congregational is right down the street on Clifton to the north. They've got about 200 spaces. Christian Scientist Church. These parking lots total over 1,500 spaces. Doctors' offices on Hillside have about 200 spaces. Half of those are vacant right now. They're available both after hours and during the day. Again, there are solutions that can be worked out with these organizations. There are solutions that can be created if we all work together. There are solutions that will result in the preservation of our neighborhood. If we continue to follow the destruction and removal of homes in College Hill, then College Hill will cease to exist.
Sir,
I've watched it happen.
Sir, your time's up.
May I ask for 2 more minutes, as the gentleman did before? I'm almost done. I've got about a paragraph left.
Depends on if somebody wants to make a motion.
I'll make a motion. He get another minute.
Thank you.
Got a second vote?
I'll second.
Second, Joe Johnson.
Yes?
Yes.
All in favor of another minute?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
I think it carries, so go ahead. And then we need to know your address too.
Thank you. I have watched it happen in other older neighborhoods. College Hill is too important to everyone in this city to let this happen. College Hill is a resource. Resources are limited. Please help us keep our College Hill neighborhood intact. Please protect one of Wichita's resources and request that the developers work with the neighborhood to come up with a parking solution that does not result in the destruction of further historical homes. College Hill does not need another parking lot. College Hill needs businesses, schools, homes, and churches working together as a team. We ask the Planning Commission to support us in asking businesses to help us create a better solution. Another parking lot in College Hill is not the solution. Thank you.
Could you give us your address, please?
103 South Pershing, Wichita, Kansas.
Thank you.
My name is Dwayne Coyle. I'm 65. I'm a retired trial lawyer, and I feel put to shame by the good job that some of these people have done, especially the comedian. I thought he was very good.
What's your address, sir?
405 South Roosevelt. And I also used to live on North Pershing. My wife still practices. She's an aviation attorney, but she doesn't have to do that from here. There are lots of lawyers in business transaction who they can live anywhere. And for 6 years, we lived just outside of Orlando, Florida. We got into a skydiving thing, and that's the place to skydive. There's really not a lot to attract people to Kansas, frankly. We're from Kansas. We're not from California. I live in Kansas for specific reasons, none of which involve taxation. Now, I didn't realize till I moved to Florida what a high-tax state this place is. They tax food here. In Florida, if you buy something that's worth more than $5,000, you only pay sales tax on the first $5,000. You can go out and buy a Range Rover and just pay tax on the first $5,000. There's no income tax in Florida. The real estate's pretty much about the same as it is here. It may be a little more in Florida, but it's not that much more. Property taxes are the same. So they tax the heck out of you here if you buy a new car. So, and there's not a lot to attract people here. I mean, I've had many of my young relatives, they've left. And they look at it like, well, where are you going to live? Now, they think our neighborhood's kind of cool, okay, but they don't see much in Wichita. And to me, the Belmont and that area and the Clifton Square, and when we moved away from College Hill, we went to Florida, and we moved back here, we moved into another house in College Hill, and this one was smaller than the one we had before in North Pershing, but it was within a block or so of the park, which we really wanted. I'm in favor of this parking lot. We're not Paris, France, and you have to give people stuff if you want to keep them. I mean, when my wife retires, we could move anywhere we wanted to. I don't know if we're rich enough to live in Paris, but close enough. And so I just think it's ridiculous that we're debating over these houses. I appreciate an old house as much as the Next person, I see Greg here. He doesn't want to move anything brick on brick. And, but we can't be like the south of England where you have to have 10 committees to move a rock or cut down a tree, okay? And nobody's going to buy these houses, or the one house is already sold. Nobody's going to be living in these houses, okay? I've heard the valet parking thing. As an ex-lawyer, I can tell you, if my client came to me, especially if they were like Victory in the Valley, they put up signs when there are events in College Hill. Do not park in this parking lot. And there's a reason. You get sued. I made my living for 40 years defending and prosecuting lawsuits. There's a lot of them. You know, people look at me and go, what'd you do? I was like, people sue each other every day.
Sir,
I'm sorry.
your time
Could I have one more minute, please? 1 minute.
I'll move for one more minute. I really would like people to please try, there's a lot of you, we're going to be here till 10 o'clock at night if we give each of you a couple extra minutes. Please try and be concise. But I will move for one more minute for this person since we gave 1 minute to the opposition.
And I'll make it very brief. I'll just keep it to one point.
I'm sorry, we still have to have a second and a vote, and I don't know if we're going to get it.
Do I have a second? I don't hear a second, so.
I don't hear one either.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Trish Heilman. I live at 139 South Fountain in College Hill, and I'm the president of the Neighborhood Association of College Hill. I think we had some pretty great news today in that I'm really loud, so I'm going to step back. So I'm
You're fine.
Okay. We had great news in that St. James Church said, hey, we want to help the neighborhood not lose houses. Please let your businesses know that when our parishioners aren't there, we'll let people park in our lot. That helps us with Clifton. It helps us with the Belmont. It helps with taking, hopefully employees can park there, and then the 21 spots at the Scientology building right next can be for people, and then we don't have to have 26 spot lot. 26 spots is not a whole lot of spots for the amount of people we're talking about. I've heard Tori say they're about 60% capacity. We want them to be 100% capacity. We want them to be wildly successful. They're great business. We want great businesses in our neighborhood because great businesses mean a strong neighborhood. But what we don't want, and we talk, and they've done a great job communicating, I think, and what we don't want is to tear down houses because we need people to live in houses. And I think we can do that successfully. I think we can work together and get her done. We do need you guys are the planning commission and think long term. And the neighborhood association also tries to think long term. We want to be viable, prosperous, absolutely something that anchors Wichita 100 years from now. So we ask that you help us do that by not mining out our assets of homes today. So today we have these 3 homes, and they're not manses, they're not huge homes, but you know what? Our neighborhood has duplexes, has apartments, has rentals, has big houses, small houses, and we love it that way. Everybody's living together, and we love that. It makes for great community. We need you to help us keep our community intact, and we get to, they own these houses. They can tear them down if they want to, and we recognize that, and we recognize their right. We hope that we're gonna inspire them to not do that, because they love our neighborhood and they hear the passion from our neighborhood enough that they're not gonna destroy homes when we can work together and solve their problems and make them wildly successful. Let's get a win-win. All the taxes that they're gonna generate at 110% capacity and 3 houses property taxes. This is also precedent setting. We've got Vora, we've got Crown Theater, we've got Wine Dive, we've got Clifton Square. All of them need more parking. If we today say, yeah, 3 houses down for a parking lot, who's the next one to apply? Precedent. Who's the next one to apply? Precedent. Please help us. We really want to be a great rock for our community 100 years from now.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Kate Wenninger, and my address is 14201 East Sport of King Street in Wichita, way east. I'm the real estate agent that represented the Happiness Plaza in Belmont on the transactions for 125, the one on the corner, and then 3344 Oakland. And so I wanted to just offer a little bit of history and answer any questions I can about the properties. My understanding is the way this first came into become an idea was that the owner of 125 South Clifton had approached the Belmont. They had approached the Belmont and said, you should buy my house. I'm tired of people parking in front of it all the time. You should buy it. And they declined at that time. However, she eventually put her house on the market, the one on the corner, for sale by owner. So she had put that on Facebook for sale by owner. So the owners had called and said, would you contact her and see what her selling price is, what she's interested in? So I did. And she said, come on over, let me show it to you. And then she said, are you representing the Belmont? I said, I am. She goes, oh, good, they need to buy this. I said, great, let's see what we can do. She had shown it to other buyers, and she had not received any offers. Once we made a deal, and she was happy, and everyone's happy, she said, my next door neighbor, the next one over, is also interested in selling, so you should contact her. I'll give you her text number. And at that point, we'd known each other a while, so I just texted the lady next door and said, if you're interested in selling, let me know. Maybe we can work something out. She did. She was not officially for sale, but she did contact, I think, some of the neighbors and ask if any of them wanted to buy it. And then she called me and said, you know, I'm for sale. What would you like to do? And we ended up buying that house as well. So I'll stand for any questions if you have any questions about either of the properties.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker? Next speaker, please.
Jamie Goodfriend, 115 North Pershing Street. I attended the DAB meeting on Monday and I listened to many different people speak out for why they were for or against the proposed parking lot at Happiness Plaza. I elected not to speak on Monday, mostly because I wanted to hear what the people of College Hill had to say first. You see, I'm new to College Hill. I was born and raised in Kansas City. I relocated to Wichita 7.5 years ago, and I just recently moved my family to College Hill within the past year. So I'm new to College Hill and the incredible community that resides within it. When I think about what makes a community great, I think about neighbors. To me, a good neighbor is someone you can trust, someone you can rely on to be there for any type of need, someone who has a similar shared vision for the present and future state of the neighborhood, and someone who is willing to work and make sacrifices to make it a desirable place to live, both now and into the future. I'm here to tell you that the people of Happiness Plaza are the types of neighbors I envision having when I moved my family to College Hill. In the spring of 2020, when COVID hit and the restaurant was unable to open up and introduce themselves for the first time to the public, what did they do? They didn't sit on their hands and wait. No, they turned their attention to the community and people in need. They supplied prepared meals to local churches, homeless shelters, and the elderly. They prepared boxed lunches and served them to the Wichita Police Department and various other people on the front lines. They did this with no strings attached, but rather as a way to introduce themselves to the neighborhood and to let everyone know that they were here to help. The Belmont is a beautiful restaurant that offers our community a fun, vibrant atmosphere with delicious food that is prepared with many local ingredients. Frost is an incredible bakehouse and creamery that offers our community premium homemade desserts that are also prepared with many local ingredients. Now, Happiness Plaza wants to bring back a classic Wichita market in Larchers and offer the College Hill community a special market that, again, focuses on local products and partners. I watched the presentation of the parking lot proposal at Monday's DAD meeting. I saw the pictures and I listened to what the people of Happiness Plaza had to say. They know College Hill and the history behind it. They grew up here. And that is why they are going above and beyond to keep the integrity of the area. So much so that they are paying more money to take less parking. It would be easier and less expensive for them to tear everything up and build a parking lot that fits 44 parking spaces. However, they're not doing that. Instead, they're going to great lengths and financial means to build a parking lot that preserves the mature trees in the area and provides a walkway and an outdoor area for people to gather. And in doing so, They will only be able to fit 26 parking spaces in their new proposed parking lot.
Sir.
That's what a good neighbor does.
Sir, your time's up.
I'm in favor, if you didn't already know. Thank you.
Next speaker. Name and address, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Tim Goodpasture. I reside at 332 South Bluff in College Hill. Let's be clear, this is all about parking, and so I want to reiterate some of the facts about parking. The parking survey that was conducted showed that at maximum, in terms of the off-street parking that is either owned or leased by the applicant, the maximum occupancy was 72%. This means that there were 87 parking spaces that were not being utilized at its maximum. On the on-street parking, it showed that the maximum usage was 37%. So this means that on-street, there were additional 122 parking spaces available in the area. That makes a total of 209 available spaces, and they're talking about a need for 26 parking spaces. We can easily provide that in the neighborhood today without having to take down any 100-year-old historic homes. Their real estate agent likened the acquisition of homes for the expansion of Kellogg to this project where the developers are desiring additional parking. In their due diligence, when they were acquiring this building, it was their plan to install a restaurant, the Belmont, a grocery store like Larcher's, and a speakeasy in the basement. Any due diligence they should have done looking at their parking to make sure that they had adequate parking, and if they didn't, they should not have acquired the building. Therefore, I am urging you, I also want to say that with the off-street parking, there is a precedent for the neighborhood denying this. In 1997, the city was tearing out and rebuilding College Hill Pool. At the time, the city intended to put the requisite surface parking on to accommodate the pool. The neighborhood came out and opposed the surface parking and said, just leave it as on-street parking. So every summer, throughout the summer on Circle Drive going home, I have to contend with 2 rows of cars that are parked and going in between them to go home. And I don't mind it at all. I love that people are utilizing the pool, and I love to see the activity. Last week I went home, and on a Thursday evening, there was a cross-country meet from high schools all around the area in College Hill. From Douglas all the way down Circle Drive to Bluff Street, there were buses, cars, vans parked all the way along. Again, I didn't mind. I absolutely loved the activity in the neighborhood. We don't mind parking on the street. And these homes are in pretty good condition. They are not in bad condition. They have not been flagged with violations with the city. And so these homes should remain. We do not want to tear down 100-year-old homes. They're not making 100-year-old homes anymore. So I urge you to follow the staff's recommendation and deny this application. Thank you for your time.
Any questions to the speaker? Next speaker.
Hello. My name is Rebecca White. I live at 249 North Baton. I live in Crown Heights, and I work just in a healthcare facility off of Douglas and Hillside. So I drive by the Belmont to and from every day from work. When my family looked at moving back to Wichita in this area a couple years ago, the number one factor was the shops and restaurants that were in the area. We looked at a lot of beautiful homes in Andover with great schools, Rose Hill, Bel Air, but we agreed that living in some of those areas was like living in a wilderness. Like we'd have to drive 20 minutes back into Wichita to go out and enjoy dinner. And so really the deciding factor was the sort of the activity that was there. And so for us, we ended up choosing to live in Crown Heights. I know that Wichita needs economic development, and these people have invested a lot of money. They've done it in a respectful way that's historical. And they have money, and they're saying they want to invest it here. I think in making decisions for the future of Wichita, listen to what younger families, I'm not a young person anymore, but people with young children and families that want to move into those neighborhoods, what are they looking for? They want a community. That's why Old Town is so popular. It's because Wichita invested in a great area. It's revitalized it. And there's a way to do the same, keep it for young families growing in the College Hill area. And these guys have done it in a very respectful way of the neighborhood. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, speaker? Seeing none, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Yes, hi. My name is Adrian Tartler. I live at 311 North Quentin Street in College Hill. So when I first heard about this, I was really in favor of it. I love everything about College Hill. My wife and I and my children, we walk and utilize all the restaurants and eateries and the variety of businesses. I'm very pro-business. The thing that just is completely confusing to me is that every time I hear about something else that's not been discussed before. So when I went to the neighborhood association meeting, I love the idea about having a little, farmer's market. But now, it's like every time there's something that's not been revealed, right? So now there's a bar, now there's a basement, and now there's it just doesn't make any sense how 26 parking spaces is going to accommodate everything that this person is wanting to put into this. And he hasn't, or they haven't been forthright with us from the beginning and saying, this is really what we want to do. So it's really frustrating. So I'm pro-business, but I just can't see supporting this at all. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions, speaker? Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Phillips, and I've lived in College Hill all my life. I've lived the last 35 years on Oakland, and it's a mess. As they referred to as the parking lot behind the dentist office, it never had an exit on Oakland. Andy's that went in there, it was denied an exit onto Oakland. And I don't see how an exit onto Oakland now. Scientology doesn't have an exit. All the other businesses up on the north or on the south side of Douglas do not have any exits onto Oakland. I enjoy the Belmont, but I do not enjoy this parking plan that has come up. And I must say, if any of you would drive by the houses in questions, it looks like they're going to let them run down. There's broken windows on the second floor. There's surplus lumber or whatever in the driveways. There's a couch or a dresser that's been out there for 5 weeks. This has been going on 5 or 6 weeks. And I have to agree with the last speaker that the word concept changes has come up numerous times when this has been brought up at meetings. I worked 2.5 years at Larcher's, and while it was a great place when I was in high school, but I'm 68. I don't know how many people are going to equate to the Larcher's image coming back. The talk of putting in a sandwich, juice bar, coffee bar, and then serving drinks until 8 o'clock. And we kind of had to drag it out of them to find out about this speakeasy that they want to put in. And so I imagine that's going to run till 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm just not for this parking. I think they've done a lot of nice design. And today I heard them say, well, they didn't want to make their entrance off Clifton. There wasn't a compromise on that. I'm all for Miss.
Your time is up.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, could you give your address, please?
Excuse me, 3327 East Oakland. We've got 5 duplexes and 1 fourplex, and the parking stinks. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. My name's Phil Martinez, 3323 East Oakland. I'm that gentleman's next door neighbor. I'm not in favor of this change as outlined. If you choose to approve this change, I would like for you to offer you these points for consideration. I would like to address specifically from the handout provided to us, staff report agenda item 4.2, page 10, item 10, additional requirements. A precedent has been established regarding cars exiting onto Oakland from commercial parking lots. Their proposal includes a parking lot with 2 access points, a drive on to Clifton and a drive on to Oakland. I would like to make a correlation between this request for a zoning change and a similar situation affecting the property adjacent to Belmont properties known as Andy's Frozen Custard Shop. Andy's Frozen Custard Shop at 3425 East Douglas was denied a drive onto Oakland Street by a condition added to their variance that allowed the original lot to be paved in 1972. Andy's repaved their lot from the dirt up in April of this year, 2021. They were held to the conditions that no access onto Oakland Street would be allowed. Through Vice Mayor Johnson's office, with the assistance of his aide, Camila Alexander, I received the following information from, I believe it's Scott Wadley, Director 1, Sedgwick County Metropolitan Planning Department. I would like to read from his email to me. Phillips, greeting and good morning. Thank you for contacting the city regarding the parking lot connected to 3425 East Douglas location. Based on the email below, it appears that you are concerned about whether there would be access to and from the parking lot onto Oakland Avenue. The planning department staff did some research into the situation and found the following. The property in question is developed as a parking lot located between 3314 and 3326 East Oakland. The subject property is zoned GO General Office and TF3 2-family. The use of the property as a parking lot was approved through a variance granted the Wichita Board of Zoning Appeals in 1972. The Board of Zoning Appeals also added conditions to the variance, one of which there shall be no vehicular access to Oakland Avenue. All access shall be oriented towards Douglas. This condition is still in place for this property. Please let me know if there's any questions that I can help you with. This is from Scott Wadley. This was also included to John Cox, Sedgwick County Government, Kathy Morgan, Wichita Government, Lee Carmichael, Wichita Government. If this zoning change is approved, there would be I would ask there be additional requirements and conditions included. One outlet would not reduce the parking stalls provided by this lot.
Sir, you're out of time.
It would also encourage traffic to return to Douglas and not spill into the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Question, speaker? Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi there, I'm Alan Kaler. I'm at 131 South Laura, and I believe that Wichita needs to deny this application for at least 2 reasons. First of all, really, this is not the kind of issue that should be decided on in a zoning case. I understand the applicant has the right to make that application. I understand that's the most direct avenue to achieve the end. But really, this is a much bigger issue. This is really a question of what the neighborhood should look like, and that's not something that should be decided on a case-by-case basis. This neighborhood has been in existence in essentially this form for over 100 years, and the residents have a deep interest in maintaining its character. It's an extremely attractive place to live and congregate, and therefore, it's an extremely attractive place for businesses to be. As a result, every business in the area would like to have more parking. It doesn't make sense to address that issue on a piece-by-piece basis, where one owner submits an application and is approved or denied, and another owner may or may not submit an application and may or may not be denied. What really needs to happen is for the businesses, the residents, and the city to get together and develop an overall plan for the neighborhood and that addresses the needs and desires of everyone involved as much as possible. As you have heard, the Neighborhood Association is very willing to work with the businesses on that, and I'm sure that the planning department would be happy to assist with that. Second, the request should be denied because granting it would harm the very character that has created the issue in the first place. The businesses in the area have been very successful, but I would submit that a large part of their success has been exactly because of the character of the neighborhood that they're situated in. The owners of these businesses have been successful and they run a very good business, but there are hundreds of good businesses in this city. What makes the businesses in this area unique is the character of the neighborhood. That is, the businesses, it is local and they're easily accessible to the neighborhood. If you allow the neighborhood to be changed, it would reduce the value not only of the residences, but of the businesses. Understand particularly that in this case, the proposed parking lot is not on an arterial, it's not on Douglas, it's on the corner of Clifton and Oakland. If you go and you stand on that corner, it is very clearly a residential area, despite what some of the comments that have been made. Therefore, I ask that you deny this request as it now stands. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name's Joe Tanner. I live at 432 North Broadview in College Hill. And I'll come off right away. I'll tell you, I'm not strongly in favor, but I am in favor. I think there are great views on both sides. So I would actually like to leave it to you, the Planning Commission. Planning does imply thinking towards the future, right? It's the word itself. The way that I see this as I'm not a fixture of the community. I haven't been here long. And in full disclosure, I won't be here for long. My wife's active duty military. But we have a house in College Hill. The reason we bought it was because of businesses like the Belmont that provide great value to us as residents. We can walk there or bike there. We have amenities in the community. We don't have to drive across town to go to something. The fact that they've already demonstrated that they're able to grow a successful business during a pandemic, no less, gives me faith that they will, in bringing back what is an historic market to the community, to the College Hill community. I think that they're onto something. But I would say, I would leave it to you, the committee, to decide whether parking is the thing that's necessary to help the business grow. I think it is a symbiotic relationship. I've lived in many larger cities than Wichita. When you have businesses like these, it does grow the property value. I've benefited from myself by selling other houses where I see that these businesses bring up the property value. People want to move in. People are interested in the property. If you don't grow the community, if you don't grow these businesses in a symbiotic relationship, you risk letting the community die. The older residents, I absolutely respect their opinion on this, and they've lived here longer than I have. But I think you have to look towards the future of the community and preserving what we do have. I strongly disagree with the characterization of these as historic homes. They're old homes. They're not historic. There are historic homes in Collegeville and I don't believe these are. I don't come strongly. I'm respectful of both sides, but I do think you should consider, do they need the parking lot to grow their businesses? Because if they grow the businesses, I do strongly believe that you'll see increased value in College Hill and the sustenance prosperity for the community. All right, thanks very much.
Could you give your address again?
432 North Broadview, College Hill.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I'll do. Tom Tarkman, 307.
Could you remove your mask, please?
307 North Roosevelt, Tom Tarkman. So, I've never heard anybody move into a neighborhood that says, hot diggity, look at that parking space. So, I don't see how that's improving. Yes, I'm for denial. One thing I'm kind of annoyed by is the use of words to paint a picture and sway people. There is power in words. One is improve. What's that? Everybody's definition of improving is different, so I don't want to hear it. Safety? Some lady said now all of a sudden she's going to be safer. What? Is this murderer's row down there right now with knifings and shootings and rapings, and it's going to be everything is beautiful? I don't think so. Another one is workability. It's a picture's painted that these are old buildings. Oh, we'll have to tear one down. It's older wiring and plumbing. I'm third generation. all-around construction. Retired, thank you, Jesus. And those houses weren't condemned by the city. So they were living in them before, and even if somebody wasn't in them, there's a broken window, I'm sure it can be fixed. And FYI, my kids call me historic. So they're not 3,000 years old, but those homes have value and paint a character, which is why people come to College Hill. And by the way, if I want a zucchini, it's at Dillon's. I don't need a farmer's market. Street safety, a previous gentleman was right. I love driving through College Hill. I live there. But specifically, those streets where this parking is, I don't go down there anymore. I finally woke up to recognize, as the gentleman said, it's too tight. A kid can go run out into the street. A car can come out. I avoid that neighborhood. I don't think we should be having any businesses that gets cars to want to go down there to get in that parking lot. A speakeasy? Oh, the grandness of that. There's a speakeasy down at, Main and Douglas, in the basement of a beautiful hotel. So what does speakeasy mean? It's an undeveloped basement where there's exposed concrete, ducting, and a conduit. That's not a beautiful speakeasy. I actually worked in one in San Francisco. Now that had beautiful plaster moldings on the wall. Somebody says speakeasy, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Sir, your time.
Thank you very much.
Any questions, Speaker? Next speaker. Give us your name and address, please.
Good afternoon, Stephen Solentrop, 3849 East English. I'm here to speak in support of this plan. My wife and I moved to College Hill a couple years ago and did a substantial remodel on a home. In deciding to move to College Hill, we first looked at a number of different areas in and around Wichita and chose College Hill not only because of the charm of the neighborhood and homes in the area, but in large part it was because of the schools, churches, and businesses that accompany the neighborhood. And so I applaud the business owners, the developers, that in the way that they have improved Happiness Plaza and what they have done to revitalize that building. And I think that this plan for the improved parking lot complements the area. They're doing it in a way to work with the neighborhood, not just putting in a asphalt parking lot and call it good. They're trying to work with the neighborhood, and I support that. So I'll keep my comments brief and do support their plan. Thank you.
Any questions, the Speaker? Seeing none, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Johnson, the chairman, members of the commission. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. My name is Greg Kite. I'm a local attorney and president of the Historic Preservation Alliance of Wichita and Sedgwick County, Inc. I'm here on both behalf of the board of directors and the general membership. The Historic Preservation Alliance is adamantly opposed to the zoning application to allow a parking lot. What I'd like to do is, because I'm coming from a different perspective, I'd like to hit some bullet points, if I could, very briefly with you. The first one is historic register status. And the Planning Commission was correct when it said that the three houses that are at issue here are not currently listed on the historic register. I think Kathy Morgan was probably involved in that, and I appreciate that. With respect to that, I met with Trish Heilman, president of the College Hill Neighborhood Association, at the site. I viewed very carefully all three homes at risk. Those homes are at 123 South Clifton, which was built in 1925, 125 South Clifton, which was built in 1930, 3344 East Oakland, which was built in 1907. While none of the three houses are currently listed in the National or Kansas Registers of Historic Places, The important thing is for everyone to understand is they all three are currently eligible for historic register status. I've looked at the foundations of all those houses and they are all structurally sound, so any argument to the contrary should be set aside. One of these homes is over 100 years old. The other two are nearly 100 years old. They need only be 50 years old for historic register status. All three homes are architecturally significant. All three houses are eligible for historic register listing under what's called Criterion C of the Historic Register nomination. Next bullet point is College Hill neighborhood. It is a one-of-a-kind, iconic place in the city of Wichita. It is both historically important and architecturally significant. Residents live there because of its unique ambiance. Developers is the next bullet point. Developers, they come and they go, but their detrimental impact lasts forever. If the homes are lost, so is part of College Hill. There is no coming back. Gone is gone. If the developers love College Hill so much, why are they wanting to tear it down? Next bullet point, Pac-Man video game. This is not the end of losing homes. This is just the beginning. Terrible precedents for the remainder of the block would be to come. Munch, munch, munch. Am I all out of time?
3 minutes.
Could I resolve with just a sentence or two? Is that possible?
Has to be a motion from the commission.
Okay. Wow, okay.
Thank you.
So be it, thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Corey Novascombe, 230 South Belmont. I just want to say that these guys have done everything that they have with the utmost respect to the community, and they've let everybody know and very transparent in everything that they've done, including this project as well. And I am in support of their parking lot.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacob Cook. I'm at 252 South Delrose. I'm in support of the new parking lot. I've worked closely with these gentlemen for a while, and to see the work that goes into it and the care, it is to help build and reestablish what is a really great neighborhood that my wife and I found just a little over 2 years ago. And if it wasn't going to be College Hill, we weren't going to live in Kansas. So I'm in for support, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is John Clodfelter. I live at 320 South Clifton. I am a design professional in the architecture community here in Wichita, and for the last 23 years, my wife and I have spent 22 of those years living here in College Hill in various houses, with 20 of those at our current location on Clifton. It's no secret that College Hill is seen as a special place by many, and to those who don't reside in an older neighborhood like College Hill, the debate of removing homes to make way for a parking lot may seem petty because it's progress. Well, I think what they don't see or understand is the history and the amount of time it's taken to establish the charm that everyone who walks and drives through College Hill experiences and ultimately loves. The homes of College Hill are important and act as a cornerstone for everything that College Hill currently is. College Hill is a neighborhood, is historically rich in architectural diversity, comprised of residential and commercial structures with no two being alike. We have a luxury of having a diverse range of housing types that are inhabited by an equally diverse range of people of varied economic status. We have a neighborhood whose charm has been established by time and the many families that have called these houses their homes for over 100 years. So it might be fair to say that the homes in this neighborhood are the foundation for the character that has developed over the last 100 years and makes College Hill so attractive today. This character is the lure and the reason why great businesses like the Belmont or Ziggy's Pizza or Watermark Books call College Hill home. They see it as a neighborhood as something that cannot easily be replicated or built with today's dollar. The character, combined with these businesses, is what helps draw people from across the city into College Hill to enjoy their offerings and the ambience unique to College Hill. Tearing down the very houses that have established the character that we all desire to live, work, and play around is not progress. Tearing down these houses that have provided the character these businesses desire as the backdrop for their livelihood to make way for a parking lot isn't really progress. Perhaps progress should be measured by utilizing what we do have, like the existing parking lots located within walking distance of the Belmont. Maybe progress should be measured by recognizing and preserving the very homes that have united us to live, work, and play here. In a set of guidelines titled Design in the College Hill Neighborhood, a document found on the city's website on the planning department, it states that the primary design goal of College Hill neighborhood is to maintain and even enhance the established physical character of the neighborhood. Now, I personally don't think a parking lot does a lot to accomplish this, which is why I oppose approval of the PUD. However, we do feel it's important to safeguard the boundaries between the residential and commercial buildings, because once we start to redefine those boundaries, it will become increasingly more difficult to stop the commercial movement into the residential areas. Remember, these houses have been here for 80 to 100 years, and I can't think of any of the businesses along Douglas that have been here that long. It's my hope that our neighborhood, residences and businesses alike, will come together as a community and try to figure out a solution to this issue. So I actually invite Tori, you and your team, to come back to the table, and let's sit down and revisit this discussion that we had at the onset of your project.
Your time is up.
Thank you, sir.
Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Solentrop, and I'm at 401 South Yale. And as I understand it, I've heard many complaints that the 26 parking spots are not just going to be enough. Well, the investors are creating this aesthetically pleasing parking area by creating 26 parking spots. If that's not enough, well, then they can spend less money, make a rectangular asphalt parking lot, take out trees, and provide more parking for their business. It's like you can't win with these people. They complain because there's only 26. Okay, we'll make it less aesthetically appealing, put in more parking spots. That'd be to the investor's advantage. And they'd probably complain to that too. So I am in support of what they're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name's Tom Nye. I live at 231 North Broadview. I've been a part of this neighborhood for 61 years. And I kind of have to go off script here because when you get this far down, I don't want to be repetitious at this point. So I'd like for you to look at this a different way. How many of you live across the street from a parking lot? The applicants included and their agent. How many of you would purposely buy your residence across from a parking lot? Then think if you'd lived on a neighborhood street for 20 years, you put your blood, sweat, and tears into this house, and not to mention the cash for maintenance and improvements to your house. And then all of a sudden they pull the rug out from you, and after 20 years somebody builds a parking lot across. I personally don't think the parking lot is an issue. I think they've saw an end. I think their end game is to eventually scrape the block. At that time, they may not be the developers anymore. This company has a history of doing these things and moving on from these developments. So if somebody has their toe in the door and can scrape the rest of the block, then what are we faced with there in the future? Are we fighting a strip center? Or are we fighting pad sites? You tell me. I mean, I am absolutely in denial of this application. I think degradation of the interior of our neighborhood is not healthy for our neighborhood. My property taxes have gone up 20% this last year. Hey, I welcome that. It's because I have neighbors that are willing to put money into their homes to upkeep these homes. My house is 93 years old, and I've had it, I work on it every day. I just finished another project. I sure wouldn't want to look out my window and all of a sudden seeing a new parking lot developing with a speakeasy in the basement, which we have no idea how much havoc that's going to create in our neighborhood with the traffic to the interior of the neighborhood after hours. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Ernie Phillips. I live at 3247 Oakland. And I'm going to piggyback on the back of that, but keep it edited. I've lived here for 20 years. I have an older house. I've made the commitment to maintain and keep it fairly decent looking. I've got money in the bank. It's ready to go for like foundation work and serious things. And I'm really hesitating because of that, even though I'm a block away. I live in what is commonly referred to as Little San Francisco, the one with the colorful fourplexes on the side of the hill. I'm directly across from a parking lot. And I bought the place knowing it had a parking lot for the Hillcrest. But it's come to my attention that the Hillcrest Corporation has bought the adjacent fourplex. It's a bright, sunshiny yellow fourplex, which with the intentions, I assume, for bulldozing and adding on to their parking lot, because it is tight. But, you know, if that happens, I'm out of there. I'm not going to sit there and look at something torn down on my very neighborhood that I've seen for 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Ann Graham at 4335 East English, and I won the prize for the longest living person here. My house is as old as I am. So how about that? But listen, the reason I'm here is to tell you that I am asked you to deny the request for tearing down the 3 houses. When I heard that this proposal was going forward, it was reminded me of the story of the camel and the tent. For those of you who don't know it, there was a camel who lived outside a tent, and he longed to get into that tent. And the owner said, no camel in the tent. But the camel pushed and pushed against the tent, and he finally broke a little seam of some threads, and he got his nose in the tent. And the owners in the tent said, it's just a nose. But the wily camel kept pushing, and then he got his muzzle in the tent. And the owners in the tent said, no problem, it's just his muzzle. Well, you know what happened? He kept pushing, and he ended up inside the tent, and I don't know what happened to the owners. But I urge you all, College Hill needs to be protected. Needs to be protected and not continuously exploited for commercial gain. The zoning request needs to be denied and other options pursued if the current parking lots problem truly continues to be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Excuse me. My name is Kimberly Loignon. I live at 9100 East Harry Street. I just wanted to say thank you for your consideration. I could use a glass of water, but a little bit nervous. I wanted to make an observation. I've listened to every side, and it reminds me of one time I was told some pieces of china are made to be broken. And I was told it was from the Bible. So I looked it up, and I couldn't find that. I kept looking and looking. What it must stem from is from Leviticus 6:28, where it talks about the sin offering and cooking your meat in a clay pot, which must be broken afterwards, or in a brass pot, which must be scoured and rinsed afterwards. So what I mean to say with that in mind is that you are given a very terrible task. You are given the task of hearing what I just said and deciding what everybody else is saying. If they are in bed with big business, are they in the clay pot business, so they're making them to be broken and we'll have more clay pots? Or are they in brass pot business and they're trying to get everybody to buy brass pots? But I think we can agree that the author of Leviticus 6:28 is not in either's court. And it was meant to be for hygienic purposes. And I think a lot has been said about the genesis and the hygienic properties of this parking lot. And I would task you all, as the Planning Commission, to keep that in mind moving forward. And I think these gentlemen would be proud if you use them as a precedence. And it's not a big asphalt parking lot. It's a hygienic to the neighborhood. It's a consistent genesis with the neighborhood. And if we did that in every neighborhood, then they'd be proud for that precedence. And I thank you for your consideration, and I know you have a hard task ahead of you. And I think that you're not in bed with either party, and that's what I'm very glad for. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Jordan Ouellette. My address is 114 North Wabash. Over the last several years, I've had the pleasure of designing and constructing the Belmont restaurant. In addition to that, the Frost Bakehouse and Creamery. Both of those projects, the ownership group has taken huge amounts of time and resources to focus on details and to focus on maintaining the culture of not only the business itself, the historical nature of the buildings and the community. I've been in the industry for 15 years, and I have not I've worked with many owners and developers. This by far is the best set of owners and developers that I've ever had the pleasure of working with, because their agenda is to share in prosperity with not only the businesses but also the communities around them. So I just consider everybody here very fortunate that they are in their neighborhood, and I'm very fortunate to be part of it. So thank you. I am in favor of the parking lot.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name's Matt Burgart. My wife and I live at 129 North Fountain with our 4, soon-to-be 5 children. We've been there for about 7 years. It's getting a little late in the game today, and a lot of my points that I wanted to make have already been covered, so I won't belabor those. But I would like to point out that, at least speaking for my wife and myself, and many of our friends and neighbors and family who have moved to College Hill, what these folks are doing at the Happiness Plaza development is precisely the thing that is drawing us to the neighborhood and will keep us in the neighborhood for the long haul. And they should be supported for that. I also do think it's important to point out that some of the characterizations of these folks, somewhat disingenuous by some of my neighbors, that they're these out-of-town interlopers coming in to kind of strip the good out of our neighborhood and move along. There's been a lot of discussion in our city about the sort of brain drain that we see and what we can do to retain talent. But while we're having that discussion, what we have here is someone in Torrey who has moved from a big city to Wichita because he sees the vision of our neighborhood and of our city and is trying to nurture that. And I think he should be supported. It's already been pointed out that they've done a lot for the city, trying to open a restaurant during a pandemic. They've provided lunches for first responders, frontline workers. They've donated to charitable causes. And again, they go to great expense to buy local and support the local community in their endeavors. So they're good people who care about our community. They've moved here, they've invested. I mean, they truly have. And I think they should be supported for that. So as College Hill residents and as Wichitans, I'm proud to call them neighbors, and I think they should be commended for what they're doing. And so for those reasons, we're in favor of the zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. I'm Kara Monaco. I live at 311 South Clifton Avenue, and I'm here to talk about money. So, we've heard about the sales tax information that's provided, that the best estimate in the future is $290,000. How much of that goes to Sedgwick County? Well, we get 1% of it. So if we're looking at money, we're talking about in a single year, Sedgwick County gets $2,900 of that. Okay, you are losing in a single year from these residences today at current rate $56.64. So that doesn't even make up for it, for the 1% that Sedgwick County gets. Not only that, but we're talking 38 residences. We're talking 38 homes within the 200 feet of this parking lot. And I would fully expect that each one of these 38 residents who collectively pay more than $52,000 a year in property taxes get a discount. Let's just say, for argument's sake, they moved into a residential zone area and now they live next to a parking lot. Well, I would suggest that that's about 10% in property tax deductions, equaling $5,200. So now you're already out $10,000 per year. Well, let's just, since you're the Planning Commission, let's take this out 10 years. That's more than $108,000 that Sedgwick County loses. And guess what? Parking lots don't buy utilities. They don't buy lumber, they don't use carpenters, they don't use plumbers. So those three houses are generating for every district all kinds of revenue. They are paying plumbers, they are paying lawyers, they are paying for sprinkler systems. You are losing a ton of money because residences buy a lot of things. And not only that, but these residences in particular buy a ton. I live 8 homes down from this proposed parking lot. I have put more money into my home than the market value. And why? Because I love this area, okay? Don't make me have buyer's remorse. I have lived in Chicago, I've lived in San Jose, I've lived in Houston, and nowhere else have I seen this kind of proposal coming where people come into a magnificent neighborhood and overnight they're living next door to a parking lot. Let's also talk about this particular area being a safety hazard for children. The street right immediately in front of the Belmont is marked for children. It has a children's marking lot. Everybody from College Hill Elementary, in addition to the Blessed Sacrament, use this parking space. Now you want to come down and create a parking lot where all these kids come in their latchkey programs every summer, especially for the pool. Let's talk about precedents. BZA 13-72. Okay, in 1972, it was denied for them to be able to put an outlet for a parking lot where the Andes is located currently onto Oakland. That's precedent. Now they have the Oakland parking lot. Suggested to you know.
Your time's up.
My time's up, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Jada Shaya, and I live at 252 South Delrose in College Hill. We moved here almost 2 years ago, instantly fell in love with this neighborhood. We own a business in this neighborhood, and from somebody that uses this parking lot every single day, I guarantee you there isn't a parking issue there. And if I understand with families in the neighborhood with kids, you don't want a lot of traffic going through your neighborhood. We have 2 little kids, I understand. And that parking lot is going to condense it closer to the actual restaurant as opposed to down the streets and in front of homes. I am for this, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Sharice Backroat. We live at 300 South Clifton, which is on the corner of Clifton and English, directly diagonal to the proposed parking lot. My husband and I have lived in our 110-year-old home for almost 30 years, raising our children in the only home they've known. We, along with most that live in the College Hill area, intentionally chose College Hill for one reason: the absolute beauty and history of the old homes and neighborhood. At Monday's meeting, Vice Mayor Johnson said it was the largest crowd at a district meeting in a year and a half. I think this speaks volumes about our passion. Most of us have spent decades and a lot of money lovingly restoring our homes and protecting their surroundings. So much so that it took my husband 6 months of meeting with the city to approve him building a small structure in our backyard. This is due just to the fact that we are 400 feet within the historic Hillside Cottage, excuse me. And you know what? We loved every minute of it. We are happy and thrilled that that kind of protection is there for our neighborhood. College Hill is also, as stated before, a huge contributor to our local economy. We are a constant source of work for local trades, including stonemasons, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, and all the like that go along with that. As my husband always likes to say, we are mere caretakers for the next generation. Maybe that's why we all so enjoy sharing our homes and the history of our neighborhood. Holiday light tours on the trolley, architectural and garden walking tours, Oktoberfest, marathons where we all line the streets to cheer on the runners. And if you've ever been in College Hill on Halloween, you get it. Thousands come from all corners of the city because they know that they will be welcomed for a safe, memory-making evening with their kiddos. It is a fact that these homes cannot be rebuilt. This level of materials and craftsmanship simply cannot be duplicated. 100-year-old brick streets, original coal chutes, hitches for the horse-drawn milk wagons, and big front porches made for nothing more than visiting. Bulldozing 3 historic homes for a mere 26 parking spaces is simply not necessary when so many alternatives are available. We cannot sit by and watch these historic and irreplaceable homes destroyed. Please vote no.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Susan Miner. I live at 303 Circle Drive, a property that extends to Clifton, so I live 1 block south of the 200-foot notification area for this zoning appeal. According to Millman National Land Services, the purpose of zoning is to segregate incompatible land uses, to prevent new development from interfering with existing uses, and to preserve the character of a community by protecting existing property from destruction or devaluation. Supporters of this zoning change have noted that real estate listings of properties in College Hill describe College Hill location as a prime amenity. These listings do not, however, cite across from a commercial parking lot as an amenity. The Planning Department report that you have before you, recommending that this zoning application be denied, clearly states that a parking lot is not the highest and best use of land in a residential zone. A recent posting from Realtor.com advising home buyers stated, "We advise against buying on a busy street or purchasing a home with commercial properties nearby." Clifton and Oakland are currently busy streets, and this parking lot would put commercial use even nearer are residential properties. If, as the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and property owners yourselves, you understand that residents commenting on this zoning change oppose it 3-1, you will concur with your staff recommendation and deny this zoning application. If, as the Board of Zoning Appeals, you agree that the purpose of zoning is to ensure proper land use and provide value to citizens who own property, protecting the character of the local environment and keeping property values stable, you will concur with the Planning Department recommendation and vote to deny this zoning application.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Simon Patton. I live at 301 North Belmont. I'd also like to thank all my neighbors. I think it's a great testament to the passion of College Hill that all of us turn out to talk about this. You know, there might be some disagreements, but I think it really speaks to why we like living where we live. And hopefully we can all just remember that. I doubt there was this kind of meeting, you know, for New Market Square or anything like that probably. So as I've been listening to all these comments, you know, my mom was a pretty big Joni Mitchell fan, and so I'm reminded of her song where she said they paved paradise and put in a parking lot, or tore down paradise and put in a parking lot, you know, with a pink hotel and a boutique and a swinging night spot. It kind of sounds like what might be going on. But I think that my comments are more germane to the refrain, which is, isn't that the way it seems to go, that you don't realize what you've got till it's gone? And I'm a lifelong College Hill resident. I grew up here. I remember when Happiness Plaza isn't the gym that it is today. I remember when, you know, Clifton Square was just pretty dead. There wasn't much going on. So it's been a great pleasure to see what's been going on with the Belmont. It's a place that I'm proud to, when I have visitors come from out of town, I'm proud to say, hey, let's walk down and go to the Belmont. This is a place that of all the options in Wichita, that's where I'd want to take you. And how great is it that it's in my neighborhood? I think they've done an amazing job with how they present the restaurant and how they've done. I think it's been very thoughtful. I do think that there is going to be only room for expansion. There's obviously property there that they're hoping to utilize. Parking is tight. I think that's just the truth of it. Anybody that's been there on a busy weekend night knows that parking is tough. And I think it's great that they've made a tasteful proposition. It would be well within their right to just say, hey, let's maximize our only profit, our only motive is money. I don't think that's the case here. You know, they're giving up spots with their proposal. They also have to upkeep in terms of, you know, landscaping and all of that. So I don't think that this is some kind of evil outside interest just looking to kind of leech from our neighborhood. I think what it is a gem that is only going to keep growing, and I don't want to look back and realize, gosh, look at what we had, and now it's gone. So thank you for your time.
Next speaker. Anybody else?
Could you allow some comments when people allow attending virtually?
Could you hold on till we get everybody here in the chamber speaking, and we'll go to person? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Heather Klottfelter, and I live at 320 South Clifton. I've lived in Clifton for 28 years, 20 as a homeowner on South Clifton, and 8 as a renter. I began renting on Oakland Street in the block that we are here to discuss today. Just to tell you a little bit about this block, it is the perfect example of why College Hill is so great. On this neighborhood block alone, there are large story 2-brick homes with wraparound porches. There are small 1-story homes. There are duplex. There's even a quadruplex, all in the same block. People of all stages of life and income levels can live there, which leads to this strong, healthy, vibrant neighborhood and community with longevity. These 3 homes are livable. We already have plenty of parking lots. That's not what brings people here. It never will be, no matter how pretty you make them. One of the reasons that Belmont is special and has done so well is because of the homes that sit behind it. Tearing down homes for parking only degrades the neighborhood and sets precedent for this to happen again. Let's set a new precedent. No more tearing down homes for parking. Now, I do want to say I do like Happiness Plaza. I'm not against anything they're doing. I'm just against the parking lot. Personally, Frost is my favorite because they have the best ice cream, I think, in the city. Ice cream is what I love. So I'm not against that. I want us to try to find a way to work with them to solve this. And I do think that this zoning application has provided some motivation for the neighborhood and the businesses that live there to come together to share the parking lots we currently have. Because we currently have, I think I counted 6 in close proximity to Happiness Plaza. So we have reached out to Victory in the Valley, and as we hoped, after hearing about the possibility of tearing down homes, they have softened their position a bit, and they're going to be discussing the possibility of valet parking, which I will also say is something that was originally suggested by Happiness Plaza themselves. I've also contacted St. James Church, and they generously, and I will say without pause at all, offered the use of their lot for customer parking, employee parking, valet parking, whatever. They are excited to help the neighborhood, and I do have written letters, if anybody wants a copy, from St. James saying that. I also, this parking lot, College Hill, living on Clifton, it's busy. There are cars parked in front of my house for the pool. I drive down Clifton all the time. This isn't going to solve off-site or on-street parking. People are always going to park on the street. Let's not tear down homes with the thinking we're going to save that. There are other ways to solve this. Adding another parking lot is short-term in a neighborhood that is here for the long term. It will not solve on-street parking. It is not progress. Utilizing the parking lots that now sit empty is progress. Creating solutions that keep the integrity, the feel, the energy of the neighborhood intact is progress. Finding solutions that encourage people to get out and walk and enjoy the community is progress. This solution is better for the business because it's better for the character and the health of the neighborhood, which is what drew them here in the first place. Please deny the rezoning application and let us work together to use what we already have. We need to get this right and do a good job to keep this neighborhood intact and thriving for all and for the long haul. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do any of you want this letter? Is there somebody I could give this to, or?
Thank you.
I don't know if anybody.
Is there anyone else in here that would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll go. Virtual. Anybody virtual want to speak on this item?
I'd like to speak.
I do.
Give us your name and address.
Okay, I'll go. My name is Sonia Gershwin. I reside at 225 North Roosevelt Street in College Hill, and I urge you to deny the application for rezoning. I want to echo everybody who has said that they really appreciate what the owners of the Belmont have done. I think they're doing a great job, and I'm very hopeful that their new endeavor will work. But I also agree with all the people who say that there's so much underutilized parking, particularly at church parking lots, that it's just a shame to create a small number of spots to destroy historic houses in a neighborhood where the housing stock is already very finite and where the homes are very, very desirable. I'm hopeful that if the current owners put in a little bit of work, they'll be able to sell these houses again if they don't want them, and we'll be able to turn a profit and put residents there who want to be there and who want to be in College Hill. I want to add that as a mother of 2 young children, I worry about the safety of adding another parking lot to a block that is already very, very congested. Frost has issues with cars coming out onto Douglas. Andes creates a safety hazard. So to put more cars there for a very pedestrian, heavily pedestrian traffic block would, I think, be problematic. And the last thing I want to say is that I think you guys have the chance here to be really visionary in your leadership and creating a model in Wichita where we are actively encouraging people to walk just a little bit more, but appreciate that that saves the neighborhood and preserves its character. I think Wichita, as it grows, it's going to be increasingly more walkable, hopefully, And this can be a really good model of a business learning how to work within a neighborhood without just, creating another parking lot by inertia rather than finding creative solutions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, virtual, please.
My name is Sonia Brozick, and I live at 3620 East English at 200 Clifton Place condominiums. There's 24 units there. And I have, and I wanted to say that I am for the parking lot, because we're excited about being a park for us to walk to and sit down and enjoy our food. So our condominium manager, property manager, has evaluated this for us to see if because their cars are currently blocking entrances on Oakland and Clifton. You can't even go down the street. They're blocking, it's already been discussed, but how bad it is. And so we definitely need some relief. Most people don't want to walk down the street, especially in cold weather. This parking lot will be an asset to our community, we feel, and I feel. Anytime you talk about College Hill, I'm so proud to hear all these people pro or against, because it's so exciting, because College Hill is one of the best neighborhoods in Wichita. If you say you live in College Hill, everyone knows. If you live in one of these rich neighborhoods somewhere, they don't even know where it's at. But College Hill and these businesses that my daughter lives at English and Hillside, there's a business that's run down there with homeless living in the buildings. And that's what has happened with these houses. I have noticed, I've lived here for 5 years, the police are constantly watching the houses. They were used as short-term rentals for a while before they had to get the short-term rental people out. I am glad to see a parking lot there. And so anyway, and also wanted to say Frost is one of my favorite places, and their oatmeal Frost cookies are the best. So please try them. Thank you for your time and for doing this for the city, or for us in College Hill. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Yeah, hi, my name is Clint Jackson, 1020 North Porter. I'd like to thank you, to send a thanks to everyone who has spoken up to generate such a great discussion here today. As Mr. DeMars alluded to, I'm part of the team exploring relocation of one or two of the homes. We think there's opportunity for a joint win here. I'm not a resident, but my family and I frequent College Hill, as do many Wichitans, for a variety of reasons, whether it be visiting friends, a beautiful park, or businesses in the area. Mr. DeMars, Mr. Francisco, and the team have shown tremendous care for the College Hill community, its rich history, and their development today. Looking at the plans, it could serve as an example for changes to existing lots. We're currently searching for vacant lots in the College Hill or surrounding areas. We invite anyone with information or opportunities to collaborate to please reach out to myself, Clint Jackson, or my colleague, Andrew McMillan, on LinkedIn or other social media, or I'm at 316-737-2944. I'd like to thank you kindly for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Anybody else virtual want to speak on this item?
Yes. My name's Emily Taylor. I live at 4325 East Lewis Street in College Hill. It's a few blocks away from the area in question. And the first observation that I just want to make sure is obvious to everyone is the makeup of the people that are in favor of or against this proposed change. Lots of renters who have current concerns about their own parking situations, a lot of people with financial interest in this going forward, and a lot of other developers speaking up in favor of this proposal, and people against it, primarily home-owning residents of College Hill. So as the Planning Commission considers, that the representation of the community and the long-term what's best, consider what community members we are really representing in that decision. My primary concerns with the parking lot proposal is that they haven't demonstrated, we can argue about the data, but they haven't demonstrated a need for additional parking stalls, or that these stalls would solve the problem at hand. And it's clear that they have not evaluated or implemented all of the possible solutions that might include other businesses or parking that's already in place. They're proposing bringing more traffic deeper into the neighborhood, which safety has come up a lot. That is inherently a hazard, bringing more cars deeper into our neighborhood. So if there are priorities to address, if we are going to consider this, it has to be eliminating the possibility of a farmer's market, which would completely negate the purpose of the proposal in the first place of providing parking. It has to be eliminating the Oakland Street exit, and it has to be preserving the street-facing landscaping, the mature trees that are up against the street, and obviously the sidewalks and the walkability to the degree that's possible. But I also want to make sure that we're being very thoughtful. We've talked about precedents in this area and that we're not following bad precedents and continuing to set new ones, because as other residents have noted, we have lots of other developments around the perimeter that would be happy to jump on and take a few houses out to make parking a little more convenient for their customers as well. So the biggest thing to consider here is that denying this proposal is not a final, there are still parking solutions to be had if this proposal gets denied. But if it gets approved, the demolition of these houses and the changing of the neighborhood fabric, it will be final. So thank you for your consideration, and I hope that you will vote to deny.
Thank you. Next speaker. Next speaker. Any other speakers virtually want to speak on this item?
This is Andy McMillan. I'd like to just say a couple words.
What's your address?
My address, business address is 3310 East Douglas Avenue. My home address is 7439 East Tanglewood Lane.
Go ahead.
I've been in contact with Tori and Ryan, and I feel like the Belmont owners have been very intentional with their, concepts and their how they're conducting business in the neighborhood. I won't weigh in one way or another on which way the MAPC should go on this, but I will say that something we should potentially look further into is it possible to move two of these three properties to a different location in the College Hill area. I think this is the College Hill issue with a potential College Hill solution. I think there are other vacant lots that may not be on the market in the neighborhood, and I've personally been in touch with a company that moved the Pizza Hut on Wichita State's campus that has basically confirmed that it's viable to move the 3344 Oakland house as well as the 123 Clifton house. The larger brick on the corner, not something that unfortunately anybody wants to, I think, try to relocate. So understanding parking is a big hot button issue, especially with what's happened with the Riverfront Stadium. I do feel like there may be other options in this case in order to consider. I think the larger questions that I have, at least as an individual that's attempted to pursue this with Unruh Moving Company, is the permitting process and what, if any, off-market options exist in the neighborhood for relocating the houses in College Hill or within College Hill.
Thank you. Anybody else virtual would like to speak on this item? Anybody else?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Lacey Holtz. I live at 140 North Bluff, and I want to say I am against this project. I think there are a lot of other options that we can explore. One of them being they need to have better signage. So right now they talk about the sandwich boards that point to Happiness Plaza. Well, if you're coming from outside of College Hill, nobody knows what Happiness Plaza is. And not only that, but those signs don't scream, hey, park here. So I think the signage needs to be revised. I also want to explore more options on the north side of Douglas. And if the crossing the street of Douglas is a concern, then we should install the flashing lights similar to what they have down at Revolution. I think there are plenty more options that need to be explored before we just jump to the conclusion of tearing down houses. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else virtual like to speak on this item?
Hi, my name is Patrick Wetta. I live at 276 South Pershing in College Hill. I have no affiliation with the owners here, and I'm not a real estate developer, but I have lived in College Hill my whole life. I'm in favor of the zoning change. My family and I are excited about the market and farmers market. We love Happiness Plaza. We love being able to walk up there. One of the safety concerns we have is by not having more parking there, I believe you are pushing traffic further into the neighborhood. As surface street parking gets taken up around Happiness Plaza, people drive further into College Hill, further down Clifton, further down Oakland, away from the commercial activity, which I think does create a safety issue for my kids riding bikes and walking around there. So I'm in favor of the zoning change, and I encourage you to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else virtual that want to speak on this item? Anybody else? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the commission. Oh, I guess get some rebuttal. 2 minutes.
Again, agent for the applicant, Russ Avey, with Boffman Company. I'll be super brief because I think the applicant's going to be able to rebut a lot of this much more effectively than I. But I think in sum total, having parking requirement north of Douglas creates a whole other host of problems, as is a lot of the solutions that were brought forth not only today but Monday night. Each one of those arguments is partial in their solution. They seem to at times become circular arguments, and I really think to take something that has got a lot of smoke in the air back down to the simplicity of this request, that of the issues that you've heard, that we've heard twice, that you're going to find this proposal is the clear and viable solution out of all of them. And so we hope for your consideration, and I'll turn it over to the applicants.
Thank you. Tori DeMars again. On a couple items here, and I'm sorry, I don't know how to go about this exactly, but as far as like the farmer's market, we did think that it would be a nice idea for the neighborhood, but we've heard some negatives against it and positives. We weren't ever going to sell anything there. We just thought it would be a good use of the property for the neighborhood. But that's why that's in there. Well, we're willing to look at that, but that was for everyone else on there. I had the ability to come to a council meeting the other day, and hearing one of the gentlemen that was opposed to us was actually presenting a deal about a $12 million tax abatement for a company that was going to supply 72 new jobs here in Wichita. We've asked for no abatement, nothing of the sort. We're creating 73 jobs, actually one more job, and we would still be paying an additional $312,000 in sales tax that we would, in taxes paid to Sedgwick County come 2022 compared to what we currently pay now. I think that everyone gets hung up on one single item and don't look at everything as a whole there. But another item that was proposed at the city council meeting was how many houses were going to be torn down this year in Wichita, and not a single person said anything about any homes in wanting to keep any of them. It was interesting because we were both here, but there was no opposition to any of the homes, and I think they said it was going to be a couple hundred homes total. As far as the congestion, some people are opposed to the parking lot, which I understand, but they're saying that the congestion is super rough down Clifton, which is a whole aspect of what we're trying to solve, is trying to bring that parking lot closer there. The market would draw more people, which is why we're trying to get additional parking to, again, help alleviate that. So we're trying to help solve the problem there before that problem gets worse. As far as adding the parking lot now, Larcher's was never a concept that we discussed until just a year ago. So we bought the building back in 2019, and when the COVID hit, we couldn't find anyone to lease a space, and so we kept looking, and then we developed our own concept. So that's how we're here today. And then my last piece was I was able to go to a meeting with the director of planning, and,
Time's up.
okay, thank you.
Now we'll bring it back to the commission. Is there any questions from the applicant?
I'd like to make a comment that there's no question that this location has a parking problem. And also, the on-street parking is definitely a potential traffic hazard. And for those reasons, I'm going to be voting to approve this.
Mr. Avey, I got a question of you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm curious, since they own the property, what can be done with this property?
I assume you mean the subject property, the 3 homes. They can renovate them and lease them out. They can renovate them and sell them. They can tear them down tomorrow with a demolition permit.
So they could be tore down right now with no requirements of not letting them be tore down.
Absolutely, and I think most of us understand that. It was discussed on Monday night. That's something I don't feel we would come forth as a threat or a piece of leverage. So we've been very quiet about that. It's been articulated by not only planning staff. I think Philip did a fantastic job, especially Monday night. I think he came right out and said that to a number of people or DAB board members. So yes, it's under these gentlemen's ownership, and they can certainly remove those structures at will.
Second part of the question, what could be built back there?
So you would have single family, let's see, a school, a church, single family, or duplex development of whatever design. We could ask for a conditional use permit to add multifamily to the TF3 zoning district, which would certainly be consistent with our comprehensive plan and our investment plan, community investment plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go into a lot of discussion, I want to thank everybody in the way they approach this. It's a very delicate case. I appreciate you guys all taking just your 3 minutes, which is part of our regulations. You all did a good job. I've been on this commission over 20 years, and this is probably one of the toughest cases I got to listen to. So it isn't easy. I agreed with one of the speakers that said it's going to be a tough decision, but appreciate all you guys' input. You guys did a good job. Yeah.
I'm curious about the parking and the exit onto, onto Woodlawn. Is that something that can be modified if we move forward with this thing?
And I
Is
think
it
you mean
necessary?
onto Oakland?
Yeah, on Oakland,
On Oakland
yeah.
there, yeah. I'm sorry, you're asking us if that could be modified? on
Yeah,
there?
I mean, is it necessary? Or,
It could be. There was no comments from zoning or anyone on changing that, but it could be, yes.
yeah, the second part of that is there any screening requirements on Oakland?
Can we direct these questions to staff?
Yeah, okay, Phil.
Yes, the Wichita Landscape Ordinance would require screening on Oakland. Screening for parking lots is required anytime it's across the street from residential zoning. So you have parking lot screening at a minimum. Sorry, it's been a long meeting. So yes, the short answer is yes, there is screening requirements for the parking lot.
And what about the entrance, the exit on Oakland? I mean, is that something that can be spoken to or not? Is it necessary?
I don't know if staff is the one to say whether it's necessary, planning staff anyway. In terms of other options, I guess if I could expound just a little bit, they do have, you look at your screen, this entrance here behind the Belmont building, since they own all of the properties, they could develop across the lot lines, this line to here, so you could potentially look at maybe a U-shaped development. I don't know what the design would be of the parking lot, but they could potentially utilize the alley access behind the Belmont building as a way to get in and potentially have an exit onto Clifton. Again, these are just options. I don't know how it would lay out or how it would work with what they're trying to achieve, how the design would look, and whether it'd be just as aesthetically pleasing or not. But that could be an option because they are contiguously owned parcels. They could develop across those lines and utilize the existing driveway behind the Belmont building to potentially provide a different orientation of the parking lot to avoid the drive on Oakland.
Yeah,
I respect Commissioner Dewell's comments and appreciate those. Parking is an issue down there, and it's something that certainly needs to be addressed. The arguments of, well, there's 1,500 spaces parking in the general area. When you're talking about private property, you don't just have 1,500 spaces available for anybody to use at any given time. Permissions have to be given, and it appears from our staff report that there has been attempts by these developers to reach out to adjacent properties for parking, and they have met some resistance. I think directly across the street there at the to the east, the Christian Science Center there, they've got permissions to park there. I think parking north of Douglas is something that is does not make sense in my estimation. There was comment about scraping. They could just go ahead and scrape the whole block on the north side of Oakland and put parking in there. If that was the intent of these developers, I think they've got a pretty poor designed parking lot that's got a significant radius in there to prevent additional parking to the west. I think that the whole taxation issue is, I think that's just another false leader that we can throw numbers about, and my numbers make more sense than your numbers. It doesn't add up. So I think at the end of the day, for me, I'm going to vote in favor of the request to build a parking lot. I'm also going to vote in favor of the farmer's market. I think that's a neat idea. I think that's something that it's not going to be an every Saturday event. I think it's going to be when when it makes sense. I think it's something that would add an amenity to the neighborhood, which is a very unique neighborhood and one that needs to be protected. The parking lots that are already adjacent to Oakland, again, whether they have access onto Oakland or not, they're there. And they have some natural screening. This particular parking lot has got some enhanced screening, along with keeping the existing trees that are there the best way they can. So that's where I'm standing at this point. And I would like to make a motion along those lines to approve the request to allow for the parking, to also have the ancillary parking areas, and then also the farmer's market.
Ms. Fox?
I can't support the additional parking lot, largely because of an extensive report that we recently heard about parking solutions that are very creative in larger cities who have addressed this very kind of issue, wanting to preserve the character of neighborhoods as well as allow for safe, affordable parking. And there's a lot of technology solutions that are longer term visions for our community so that we don't face this over and over again. And I think that's the greatest concern I have when we think about land use. Here's one of the neighborhoods within our established central area. And if we add parking here, then there will be a ripple effect of requests. I can see that happening already. Because those of us who drive from the outskirts, sure, we'd rather not walk, even though it might be good for us. So I really think there could be some more creative solutions with just a little more time for this. I also heard 2 speakers come forward who say that as members of the neighborhood going to some of the churches, there was an openness to think this through a little more carefully, where the developers may have initially been denied. And I think it's very common for a private owner to deny a developer immediately. You know, it's a simple, nah, I'm really not interested. But when they learn the bigger impact on the neighborhood, there could be different consideration. And certainly there's all kinds of legal agreements can protect both parties. So I feel like that there would be some more creative approaches putting these folks together. I also want to make sure nobody interprets this as questioning the character of the developers. It is admirable the extent to which you're looking to try to make this acceptable to the neighbors. And with the DAB voting 6-4, I think that's the neighborhood voice. You see there's some conflict, but still a larger voice to denying the parking lot, which to me would be a good reason to give it a little additional consideration with the creative parking approaches that we've found in other communities being applied.
Ms. Foster?
Well, first, I would like to commend everyone who spoke on both sides. Your passion for your neighborhood is wonderful, and thank you for that. But there's 3 points I'd like to make. One is the hard data we got on parking studies and the taxes, and I appreciate the data, but in both cases, I don't think the data is definitive. There are too many other factors. The parking study was done in a pandemic. There are far more taxes than property taxes, and there are more economic impacts than just taxes. So I don't think either of those issues are the critical one. Parking lot, there's good parking lots and bad parking lots, and I think this is one of the best one I've seen. I like the L shape because it reduces the amount of space that's actually wasted in an aisle. I like the public space that's incorporated. I like the screening. I think this is a parking lot that is going to work on the border between commercial and residential as a buffer. But the most important issue to me, what we've been talking about, I think almost everybody has addressed it in one way or another, is the neighborhood character and the fact that College Hill is such a desirable neighborhood because it's walkable. But to me, the definition of walkable is a little more complex than just having houses and just having nice places to walk on. You also need destinations to walk to. And it's the balance of land uses in College Hill, the fact that it has public land use in its park and residential and commercial that makes it work as a desirable neighborhood and a walkable neighborhood. And because I think that this project will enhance the walkability of the neighborhood in the long term by enhancing its commercial destinations, I will be voting to approve it. And I would like to second the motion.
Mr. Warren?
Well, I do have a thought. I will be voting against this, approving this, because that I remember a couple years ago, we allowed a group home to go into a neighborhood, and we all thought it was no harm. But before it was all over, those homes had encroached upon that neighborhood, and all of the existing neighbors had to move out. And to think that that any other parking lots will not come on that north side of Oakland, it's being naive. It looks good now, but what would it look like 10 to 15 years from now? So, I have a hesitancy there. I commend everybody what they said, but in the long run, I do believe this will be detrimental to the neighborhood. So I will be voting to deny it.
Thanks, Darrell. Mr. Warren?
For those of you watching, you see in us what we see in you, which is differing ideas coming from a standpoint of really trying to do the very best that we can. My thoughts are this, bad businesses don't create a lot of traffic, and so therefore there'd be no need for additional parking if this was a bad business, but that obviously is not the case. Everything I've heard from people on both sides of the fence says that this is a business that is doing good work and is going to be a plus to the neighborhood. So when you have good businesses, they do create traffic, and so you've got to deal with that. Either you're going to put more traffic on the streets in front of homes, or you're going to create a parking lot to take care of that. Or worst case scenario, people just stop coming, and now instead of having a good business, you have a failed business, and that's not a good solution for anything. Walmart has parking lots. This is what I call a park lot. This thing is attractive. It ties in really well with the neighborhood. It does not solve the problem, but it helps mitigate the problem. At least we're not making it worse. And so therefore I will be voting in support. The question for staff is how much detail do we need to put in terms of the findings? I mean, I can look at the findings, and I've heard on the arguments that we've heard today, find very good arguments on both sides of that. How much detail do we need to go into that in order to approve?
Well, Mr. Warren, Jeff Van Zant, the lawyer, is online. I think so I will defer to him, but I will offer that in the past, when you've had cases where you've done other than the recommendation, it's not that you have to make every single finding be in favor of your motion, but to state at least a few of them would be good, would be helpful for us too, to explain as we take your recommendation forward as well.
Okay. With that, as I go through this, like I said, it will be easy to make arguments on both sides of almost every one of these. The zoning use and character of the neighborhood, when you look at the quality of the parking lot going in, I could make the argument that this would fit the character of the neighborhood. Those of you that disagree with me, I understand that. I understand your arguments well. So that's one that could go, depending on where you stand and how you feel about it, you could feel either way on that issue. I think that the suitability of the property for this use, based on the growth that has been going on for the last 50 years and how commercial has come in and established certain areas, and you got residents, I think that this would fit for that. I'll just leave it with that. If somebody wants to add more to those findings, then.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor and a second. Have we got any more discussion? Joe?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Joe Johnson. I have two questions. One, how many homes were torn down in Clifton Square to make it work? And two, what guarantee do we have that the parking lot would be built as designed, presented to us?
I don't know if I can answer the first question. I'm not from Wichita, so I was not here when Clifton Square was developed, so I'll do a hard pass on that one. Guarantees about the parking lot, there can be language added to the motion regarding, design to the concept there, but also meeting the landscape requirements of the Wichita zoning code, things of that nature, requiring an approved site plan, site and landscape plan, which would mean there'd be an additional review process at an administrative level to ensure that their design actually meets what their proposal is, things like that.
Philip, if I may, sir, I'd like to also add that there's been a discussion about the parking for the farmer's market, and I think, Philip, we had talked earlier that staff would recommend that as part of a motion to approve, that you would include waiving the parking requirement for a farmer's market, so that there would not have to be additional parking provided during those events.
Mr. Green?
Yeah, and I'll add that to my motion. I also think that bear with me. I think the relative gain to the public with this motion and with the parking lot, it creates more closely parked, it provides parking closer to the businesses that are there. It should reduce the amount of people that are walking along the streets because of the street parking lot, or the street parking that is prevalent in the neighborhood.
If we're going to allow the farmer's market, I would have to oppose it.
You'd have to what?
I'd have to oppose this motion.
Okay.
I might ask, why?
I just think it puts more stress on the neighborhood if you take that parking away for a farmer's market.
Joe, I have to disagree with you. I think it's a matter of the timing of when the farmer's market would use those spaces. And I think the farmer's market idea is one of the things that makes this a walkable destination for the people in College Hill and makes it a more lively, walkable asset to the community, is the potential for this parking lot to be a farmer's market on, you know, the 3 or 4 Saturdays a year when it gets used that way.
I don't think
Well,
it could be used
you
on
bring up a good
Saturday.
point. Could we limit the number of Saturdays that can be used that way?
I don't think it can be used on Saturday, can it? I thought it said weekdays.
For a farmer's market?
I believe it's right in
They're usually on Saturday.
the one downtown, because it's a public space, can be used on Saturdays, but it says to be used during weekday.
I think we need to ask the
I'm pretty sure I
applicant if
read
they've
that.
got an idea of how they want to pitch in on that.
Bradley Fair runs a farmer's market on Saturdays.
Yeah.
What's that?
Mr. Aby, let's ask them.
As was mentioned Monday night during the DAB board meeting, we were hypothesizing that farmer's market would only be 6 Saturdays. So half the year, then the nice part of the year for 6 Saturdays was our goal. There's other options of moving the farmer's market concept to other areas on the property in order to avoid this. This is, very rarely do we get into a situation where there's not one or two. It's not a binary question, but then you have multiple issues at play. And so we would hate the ship to sink because of something of that farmer's market. We've already agreed to waive that allowance. We certainly appreciate the support. We're in agreement with those arguing to support it. But there again, we don't want to, again, threaten the viability of the application based on that one single issue. So 6 Saturdays would be something that we would be agreeable to as far as a
That was
condition.
my question. 6 Saturdays would be agreeable? Joe,
So-
would that work for you?
Before we get into the discussion of Saturdays, the supplemental use regulations,
Joe, did you hear that?
oh, sorry.
I think it's getting closer.
If you look on page 11 of your staff report under the supplemental use regulations, item number 5, the farmers markets to operate no more than 5 calendar days per month, only Monday through Friday during the months of April through October between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. J.R. Cox, zoning administrator, informed me that this can only get more restrictive because of the licensing aspect of it, that you can't give more to it than what's stated here. So to talk about farmers markets on Saturday is not something that these supplemental use regulations would allow.
I'm sorry, I did not read that closely enough. Every farmer's market I've ever been to was on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, I think it's private versus public, the way it's written, isn't it?
Apparently so. Having read that, or heard that read, I also do not want this project to sink over the farmer's market issue. I think it would be a nice amenity, but it's certainly not the most important factor in this whole discussion.
And I would be willing to alter my original motion to remove the farmer's market. I also know that the developers were even saying that, or Mr. Avey may have said it, that this project doesn't live and die on the farmer's market. So I think if we can come to a majority vote and not have the farmer's market, then I would withdraw that portion of my motion.
I would agree as a second.
Okay.
All right, staff, are you straight on the motion now?
Yes, I'll repeat it and make sure everybody is on the same page. So, Mr. Green, your motion is to approve, subject to the recommendation in the staff report for approval, with the exception of removing the farmer's market.
Correct.
Motion
And the second was there.
Second agrees?
Yes.
If I may, was there something that you wanted to add regarding the guarantee of the design?
Yes, I think that would be critical, that staff.
The simplest way would be requiring a site and landscape plan to be reviewed and approved.
Yeah.
That's fairly standard language we put in other things.
And I agree as a second, yes.
All right, I think everybody clear on the motion?
Yes.
Do we need to do a roll call or? Okay.
Excuse me, we have sound issues.
We've got that jet landing again.
We're getting some feedback from Commissioner Gross, but it looks like it's been resolved. Okay, so I will do the roll call. I think everyone's clear on the motion. It's just stated. Green?
Aye.
Bill Johnson?
Aye.
McKay?
He left.
Gross?
Gross?
Aye. Aye.
Fox?
Nay.
Jewell? Aye. Blick is absent. Nix? Foster?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Joe Johnson?
Aye.
Miles is absent. Hartman is absent. Florence?
No.
Yes, 8-2.
Now, staff, this item will go in front of the city council. Do we know when?
I apologize, I don't have the date off the top of my head. It is usually about 4 to 5 weeks after. There's a 2-week protest period, which ends 2 weeks from now on October 21st. And then typically city council is about 2 to 3 weeks after that.
Thank you.
I believe it might be November 9th.
There will be a follow-up letter that is
Yeah, a
sent.
follow-up letter will be sent. I recorded the names and addresses of all the folks who sent an email. I have over 110 addresses that are already on envelopes waiting for a letter to be stuffed in them to be sent out with the information about the protest period and the city council date.
Any other business? Again, I want to thank everybody for the cooperation they had today. Tough decision, but we got through it. Thank you. We're adjourned.
This conference is no longer being recorded.